or it's just it takes it.
That is a lot
It's
of. You need another person.
somebody like an editor or somebody to sort of rip the audio from
I
these, and
thought
then
DMS edits everything.
I wish then it would turn everything would turn out great.
He is an editor, but I guess he's already employed as an editor. So
Yeah,
no,
well, he's
no problem.
he's really good at making content as well. So I'd rather have him do that.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
yeah,
Coach one of the LTT editors.
those guys are really good. All right, we're
Oh,
live. We
really?
have been for the last 30 seconds.
Okay, great.
uh,
I
all
didn't
right.
say anything.
No. What's up, guys? Andrew571 here.
And
That was totally off the cuff and unintentional.
I am headphones.com today, and Andrew571 is with me. Yeah, thanks. I just got it. It's Venom is very cool.
Dope.
But it's
Ven-
more of wearing the shirt because they were the biggest influence on Slayer, which is actually my favorite band of all time. So
Oh, okay.
obviously,
This
which
is
everybody knows already.
Venom the band, not the
Yeah, the
okay.
black metal
Yeah.
band from like the
Yeah.
80s.
Yeah, I remember.
I'm
Venom.
sure
What's
Oratory will approve.
Bathory, and there was one other one at the time. And I
Oh
can't
yeah.
remember.
What is the other one? I know what you're talking about.
Is
I wasn't
Napalm
good
Death
as
around that time?
I thought that was that 90s? Maybe
Might
that
have
was
been a little
90s.
later.
Grindcore.
I mean, Burzum is back then too, but
Yeah,
not.
Burzum.
Yeah, that's always everyone's favorite whipping boy, including mine. See, there we go. The camera's choppy again. This is annoying. All right, guys. Let us know how the audio levels are, because as is tradition with multiple people, the audio levels have to be
Always
different.
a little bit unbalanced,
Yeah.
just like the cables I use. That's terrible.
Just like my opinions.
I intentionally use unbalanced to make sure that everyone is triggered by not using XLR.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a terrible, admittedly unusable, or supposedly unusable balanced amp called the THX 789.
Wait, why is that unusable?
I don't know, because it was like really, everyone was very happy about it when it was new, and now it's like you better never ever use that AAA technology again. So like, yeah,
Yeah.
me ranting about it is good for setting levels. Apparently I was slightly low.
I just boosted you.
Maybe
so,
you fixed it. Looks
yeah.
like you did.
Um.
Anyway, I don't even use that anymore. I use the Atom. Are we going to really start on the amp foot? Because Rhino's
Yes.
just going to yell at me again because I don't care that much about amps.
Yeah.
There are differences between amps. In case I need to say that again, I don't really care that much. I just use what I have right now because I'm not reviewing anything anyway.
But by the way, before we get going, I have to apologize for how deep the V is here. It's really we're about to get a heat wave, and I'm just getting ready for the day. I'm also wearing shorts, believe it or not, this time around, which ordinarily would never
Alright.
happen.
Yeah, wait a minute. I thought you were in Canada.
Yeah, it's Pacific Northwest basically, and
Okay.
lately it's not been fun here for the summers.
Yeah, it's like 90 degrees here in New Jersey today. It's really crazy. It's so
Yeah,
much
I don't know what that
humidity.
means.
It's always humid here. Oh, I forgot about that.
That's what DMS and I always have been.
I gotta convert. I don't know. I can't do that in my head. I need a program. Hold on, let me go write one in Python.
Yeah.
Anyway, no,
Yeah.
I'm using the internet. Anyway,
Just so you guys are aware, I turned off Super Chat for this one. I will probably turn it back on again for upcoming ones, but I don't want any confusion about that. The stuff that I can't control. So
yeah, I think that makes more sense. I was trying to make the comment of, hey,
yeah,
if you super chat, it's not gonna go to
Yeah.
me. Like, I don't want any money anyway for this. So
yeah, me neither.
yeah, okay. Someone says, "What's wrong with the 789?" Well, basically, what is it? Pretty much everyone. I don't know. People who care about amps prefer the what is that head amp thing that I always forget the name of that you love?
Me?
The solid state one that's unbalanced only.
Head
That's
amp?
powerful and good. Maybe it's not head amp.
Are you thinking of
crazy.
GSX something?
No, not the GSX Mini. The like $500 one. That's really
Rebel
good.
amp?
Yeah, that's the one. I
I
can never
mean,
remember the name of it.
so here's the thing about that. So I am more convinced than ever, or my I've doubled my resolve on this topic. Um, on the topic of solid state equipment not making a meaningful or not making a proportional difference. All right, because I've been getting
For the
more and more
cost, right?
into
Yeah.
A/B testing with this A/B circuit switch thing. I need to do a video on this at some point and show kind of like how it all runs. And it's also not the final version of it. Blaine's sort of working on that.
I was about
helping
to
me with that.
ask, did you guys make one? I guess you did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Blaine put one together for me, and I
Cool.
think there's still future versions because it's not quite perfect as far as like the way that the functions all work, but for specifically A/B testing, it still is effective at sort of demonstrating that like so much of our expectations around source equipment is psychoacoustic. And I actually think that like that kind of makes sense in situations where there might actually tangibly be a difference. So again, not to suggest that there's like some sort of magical quality to any of this, but like in the situations where there would be even measurable differences, where it's like the tiniest little difference, and like as soon as you start to notice that difference, suddenly you feel like it really is super important and super impactful. But when you do those blind tests, you start to realize how even when you do think there is a difference, right? Like I was testing like a current-based source against a more normal source, let's say. You start to realize how insignificant those differences really are.
Yeah, I think I just kind of I'm basically Kryn. It's like, yeah, no, the first thing I'll test with is like an Apple dongle, which I have,
Hmm.
and like 90% of the time it sounds fine to me. Like
Yeah,
it's crazy.
and of
But
course, we'll get raked over the coals for using streaming services and not offline FLAC
I
files.
know, I
But
know.
I,
I
I have
know.
to be
Some every
realistic.
time
Yeah,
somebody asks about sample rate, I have to put in parentheses as long as you don't believe in the 96K 24 thing too. It's like, oh god.
yeah.
Not just compression, but the sampling rate stuff. Oh, here's a good question. If you
Yeah.
don't mind, I'll take
No, go
this
ahead.
one. How's my experience with the SA6? You know what? I think I was supposed to tweet some kind of tweety thread of the SA6. I don't know what I'm even describing, but I actually have been using them regularly now in the office. They were kind of in and out for a while because I was trying to figure out what tips and what cable to use because the stock cable is notoriously relatively heavy, which I'm sure you agree with, Resolve, but it
Yeah,
doesn't always bother everybody because it is nice to have the modularity. But what I
yeah.
did is I ended up, well, unfortunately for my wallet, going on the headphones.com forum, and actually one of the person who I was talking to in there might even be in here at some point. But basically, he recommended, I forget his name, I'm sorry, um, the Triple Win Zoni is one of the options, and I looked at it and I was like, yeah, this is
Oh, for the
really
cable.
light. And so, yeah, so this is
Yeah,
the Triple Win Zoni cable, and of course it's not modular at all. It's just simple, but that might even save on the weight a little bit too. And it's so nice. And what I decided to do with tips, I've been telling Resolve to try spin fits for a while now. And so this is a very interesting tip, not one of their typical tips. This is a true wireless tip. The
oh,
reason why is because I found out that the one of the things that I feel like is under explored is possibly tip length. Yeah, that's gonna get clipped. And
if I had a
and
nickel every time I heard that.
yeah, and like for example, I've got my Titan S prototype here, and the CP145, which is a more typical offering from SpinFit, is I think it's like around it's about 9 to 10 millimeters long, and these are like 8 millimeters. And one of the things I noticed was I took a look at the actual length of the stock tips, and I realized, oh, there's a huge difference between these because when I was using the 145s on it, which were relatively long, it sounded like the air was a lot quieter, and the 5K peak that they have got worse.
Hmm.
And then when I went back to the shorter tips, which are more like the stock tips, but they actually stay in my ears because the SpinFit material is really nice. That's one of the reasons I tried it. It went back to like the 5K was reduced and there's a lot more air and it sounded more even. So I actually don't use these with any EQ, seriously. I'm actually plugging them into a BTR5 at work at the moment just because it's convenient as a USB amp is how I'm using it. And it sounds spectacular. So
Nice.
that's what I think so far. I mean, yeah, maybe you could use 1 or 2 dB less at 5K, but that's what I remember listening to them with the stock tips. But then I ran the other spin fits, the long ones, for so long that I was like, oh, this has a problem. And then I got back and I'm like, oh no, it's just the tips.
Yeah.
So they do matter. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's
That
the
was
S6 journey.
that was my sort of discovery as well with I think it was the original Monarch, the Audio Monarch, where the original like most of the tips there was some issue in the treble, and then I switched to randomly just happened to try one of the Deconi foam tips,
Oh yeah.
completely went away, and I was like, wow, that's maybe it is an insertion depth thing that particular tip allowed for,
It's
right?
I think it
But
might be material and insertion
yeah,
depth. Like
yeah,
I think that some IEM, like a lot of the IEMs, I tried enough moon drops and
yeah.
like the Titan S, for example, that a longer tip helps to fix up. But there's like a little bit of glare on the Titan S with some of the stock tips that came with a prototype here, which I got to keep for free, full disclosure. But
Well,
it's basically identical, I think, to the final. And when I put the longer tips on it, it helped fix this glare of really narrow peaks somewhere around like 9K or whatever.
sorry,
But
I'm removing some.
yeah, I see what's going on.
Jesus
I'm sure
Christ!
you can
I need a moderator.
fix that. That happens like every time.
Yeah.
Crazy. What was I saying?
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Continue.
the with the tips, I forgot what my train of thought was. Yeah, oh, with a lot of the IEMs I've experienced, longer tips made it just generally better FR. But then I was surprised with the SA6. I was like, oh no, this is like the exact opposite. The longer you use the tips, the worse the 5K gets, less air. And actually the soundstage felt like it was better with short tips. And I was like, that is like the exact opposite of what happens with pads.
Hmm.
With some headphones. Thicker pads tend to have a larger soundstage in my experience.
Yeah.
Whereas like it totally depends, and the same thing goes with foam and silicone. I think like sometimes foam is a lot better. Like I think the only way I liked the ER2 at all was with foam, which is gonna trigger some people too. Like everyone likes the triple flange. I think the triple flange sounds much better on the ER4 for the short time I owned it too, though. So it's like it totally depends on like the individual IEM.
I mean, in some ways, that does also indicate like the significant contribution to perception of soundstage and some of these qualities from FR, right? Because if you think about what would actually change,
I mean,
that
yeah, that's all that's changing, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Like FR at the eardrum, right? And it's actually interesting because, so like as much as the topic of sound demos is in the back of my mind right now, given some of the recent discussions I've been having and some of the stuff that
Yeah.
you know Linus was talking about. Um, but when you listen to Olive's sound demos of the HD100S, which like when you're listening to those sound demos through, whatever the compounding effect of those headphones makes it so that it's not like an accurate representation, right? Even in the best cases, right? But you can still hear that difference, right? So you can still hear some sort of sounds, like things sound wider with that demo of the HD100S somehow. So at the very least, whatever changes going on there in a relative fashion from FR, because that's all that's actually changing in that case. Like, right? Categorically, that's all that's changing. That's, somehow, making that happen.
Yeah,
So,
I think that I agree with Mad pretty much 100% in terms of like if it can I think it was him who said this, but if it can be heard, then it can be measured somehow at least. And
yeah.
like I don't think there's magic anywhere. It's
No.
just that we have to figure out what the metrics are, and I think that's like the area of research that's left to be explored. Like
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
what.
like with some hobbies, it's like all this stuff you can actually completely tell from a graph. I guess for the most part, how a switch on a keyboard feels, whereas like with headphones, it's like it doesn't feel like this represents my subjective experience every time, but maybe we'll be able to get closer. So I think closing that gap. My goal, I always say, is to actually eliminate the need to review headphones and just be able to
Yeah.
describe it all based on a bunch of numbers. But that's
Yeah.
definitely the engineer in me. But anyway,
It makes me think of a couple things. But in particular, it's interesting because because of the headphone that we're working on, right? Like the transducer design stuff and development stuff. And what I wonder is if we get to a point where we say, okay, like all of the things that we know about from an FR perspective, right? We can see them here, and this has whatever contribution they have, but the missing factor, let's call it, right? The thing that like there's either a situation where we're not analyzing that completely, and so any of these additional subjective properties that we think about or that we report are down to a incomplete analysis of FR. Let's say that's one option, but the other option could be something like there's nothing measurable in that sense, but we could measure something else potentially. Like, for example, we could figure out, like, if, for example, flux density is one of the key parameters there that leads to this being all else equal better.
right.
Then we could say, okay, this FR is, this is the FR, and it's this good relative to, say, we do relative to a target. And then we have an additional parameter for flux density or something like that, where that's technically measurable, right? It's just that that's not measurable in the same way that we think of FR and THD and all these existing metrics. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying if something like that were to show up, there would be that would still be measurable. Is the point?
Yeah.
The other thing it makes me think of is you mentioned the keyboard thing or the switches thing. I think ultimately
Other hobbies, I think.
other
Yeah.
hobbies, yeah. I think some hobbies I think about the tech channels, right? Where like it wouldn't make sense to really pay that much attention to a tech channel where they're not using performance benchmarks. Like nobody's going to do subjective
Yeah.
reviews of CPUs, for example, which would be amazing. It'd be really funny.
I there's a lot of details there. I won't go into that right now. It's still not subjective in the end, though.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But and yeah, I mean, there's obviously better and worse ways of doing it, right? Like one of the things that I pay attention to, like right now, I'm trying to find a new laptop, and I want something that's going to be really good for video editing, but a lot of the time the benchmarks that get used.
AMD.
So actually no, it's the Intel, it's the new Intels that are leading the charge there.
They're really finally getting there, huh?
Yeah,
I'll have to look at that on my notes.
12th
Okay.
gen, I think. Like I can't remember, Alder
Okay.
Lake or something. I don't know. They're smoking the competition with
Even in the laptop space, wow.
yeah. It's well, I mean they're obviously hotter.
I
And,
would worry about the thermal throttling
yeah,
with that stuff.
yeah,
the
yeah.
only
That's my
thing.
worry as well. Yeah, but
That's
the
the
thing,
tough. There's just so many variables. It's hard.
yeah,
But okay.
the
Yeah. Anyway.
the thing with that though is that like a lot of the time the benchmarks that you see they're based around render times, and render times generally don't matter. So when you see a benchmark where it's like, oh yeah, this performed better than this one, it was like a 10 seconds faster, therefore it's better at Premiere Pro, right? Technically that's not true. That doesn't mean that your actual use case of that thing in that application is going to be better. It'll be better at rendering, but it won't be better at actually editing your project necessarily.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's why there's an element of that that's like that's not right. Some of them do actually, like in the Puget Systems ones, they do actually they do evaluate playback, right? And that's better. But the point that I was getting to with the key switches thing is that even I for me, like philosophically everything is normative. But with that aside,
Oh no.
with that aside, with the key switches thing, I think even if you can reliably predict everything about it, like sound, you can get a general prediction of travel and weight and all this kind of stuff. There's still the human element of I want my keys to feel this way. I want my keys to sound this way. And I think that there's even less of a like. Here's the interesting thing that should be done with that, and maybe it has been, and I'm totally out of the loop on this, but like preference research with key switches. Like what would that look like?
Oh
No.
no.
Let's get Sean
Okay.
Olive on the case.
No, I think Corinne is already heading in that direction.
Is he? Okay.
Well,
That'd
yeah,
be dope,
he's,
right? Like,
he's working at that like keyboard shop now. I forget the name of it, but I saw that, and I think I ended up following that channel too. So
yeah.
that's not going to help my addiction to that hobby as well.
I-
It's not that bad. I actually just got the K8 Pro, and I did get the Echo Lavenders that I was telling you about, but I still
Yeah.
didn't put them in the board yet, but I'm gonna get there.
What's
Anyway, what's going on with the chat here? It sounds like people are saying they want EQ for harmonic distortion, attack, and decay. They want to add or subtract those things.
By the way, big shout out to Golden Sound.
Oh yeah,
as always, to see him in the chat there. He says
here.
he said I see earlier he says how do magnets work?
What?
Still working on that one. Yeah.
Harman keycap curve.
Yeah. So okay, here
really
let's take that
like
analogy,
that.
right? Because that's kind of the direction this was going. If someone were to do key switch, let's say preference research, and they came out with like this is the, this is like what 60 to 70% of the population preferred when it comes to key switch, what would our like how do you think we would react to that?
No, I'm just kidding.
What's that? Yeah,
The team linear.
I need to start getting on that. Oh
Not
Jesus
gonna
Christ!
start that debate. Oh my god, it's still going.
There we go.
Sorry for the spam.
I gotta get a mod
Even
in
though
here.
we can't control it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like
What you're saying, I guess, yeah.
what would our reaction be to the idea or the notion that like we can evaluate key switches against a average or against a particular target, or just like targets for key switches in general? Let's call them travel targets.
Oh no, Harman Thok is another good one.
Yeah. For the sound, I think that would make sense, but
I think that's very fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad that Corinne is like, yeah, it was like a joke. It's like, we're gonna be profiling our like key switch frequency response, and it's like, yeah, actually, yeah, we are. Looks
Yeah.
like that's where he's going with that.
I'm all for
I
it,
mean,
man.
why not?
Why not?
There's so much overlap between these hobbies anyway. It's like if you have headphones, and you're probably gonna get a keyboard and pens and mice and who knows, and hopefully not watches, because that's.
I was going to
another
ask you what your
cost.
take. I was just about to ask what's your take on watches.
I am way too pragmatic. In fact, even with keyboards, like I have like one extra keyboard than I need right now. It was just because I didn't want to go for a custom to start with. And the other two, one is for work, one is for home. And like I'm way more concerned with like having a pre-programmable keyboard with QMK and VIA and just switches that are relatively smooth and PBT only, just so it doesn't wear out, rather than like I want a key cult made of like aluminum, and it's got to look amazing, and like all this other stuff that's just preference stuff. I want like functionality first. That's like, yeah, that's how I am with that. So watches, yeah, you can see if I apply that kind of logic, it doesn't work out so well. But
Honestly,
I
me too.
understand why people get into it though. It's one of those things where it's like you have one, and it's like, oh man, nope. And here comes the second, and then you're lost. Like as soon as you get the second watch, just
You're
like
in.
with the second keyboard, you got to be really careful.
Yeah, you're into it. Yeah.
So,
Well, I will have you know that the massive collection of random keycaps and switches that persists on my desk has
yeah,
not changed.
I have
So
I have that problem.
yeah.
I'm probably just gonna donate a bunch of my stuff because, like, I'm not gonna go through trying to sell that.
Yeah.
Too annoying. All right, so we do have some questions here somewhere. Let's see.
Yeah. Oh, Golden says my housemate is very into keyboards and is trying to get me into it. I'm trying to resist. My wallet can't take another hobby like this.
I don't.
Yeah.
The thing about it is like with headphones, it's really hard to know what you're getting into. Whereas like one thing you can do with keyboards that I did first is I bought a whole bunch of switch testers, and that actually helped a lot. Like instead of buying like 10 keyboards with different switches to figure out what you like, get a key tester and then make a couple of informed guesses, and then chances are good you're going to hit much closer to where you're going to end up on the first or the second one. So I think that saved me a lot of money, even though buying all the switch testers was like $100 or something to get all of them. But it's so much better than 10 keyboards. So
I've done it wrong already.
Yeah, you already started with.
But
Yeah.
I'm too lazy to remove,
But
the
I think
U4Ts.
we only bought a bunch of switch packs though, instead of buying like a bunch of different boards or whatever. Like the whole hot swappable thing helps so much now. So,
Yeah.
and
Uh,
yeah, I'll let you know if the Echo Lavender's. I feel like is going to be where we end up because you wanted a light tactile and with
well,
actual tactility still, but lighter
yeah.
than the boba at least.
See, the bobas are. And we're getting the keyboards here, but like the bobas, they're light for some of it, but the actual tactility is too strong.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. Okay.
so like the
I imagine
actuation
a
part.
lighter switch will also probably generally have a lighter tactile bump anyway, but you don't want like brown,
No, 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 no,
which
no.
have
Screw
like
that.
no bump.
No. So, but that's
So
the other thing
anyway,
is like at a certain point, there is probably a reason to just go linear and just try soft linear and then just
that's
like
what I've
bite the
been.
bullet on bottoming out everything.
Right. That's kind of where I ended up with my JWK stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna try running tactiles now.
Yeah. Well, I need
Anyway,
to get a new keyboard for the studio anyways because that one's using 65 gram Zelios and my hands hurt when I type there when I'm writing stuff there.
that's too much. Yeah, if you're gonna like type for a long time, a lighter switch is good. But
Yeah.
yeah, then you may have to go linear. All right, all right. Let's
Looking forward to the
see.
keyboard
We
show
w-
channel.
we went. Yeah, we went too far off track.
Yeah. All
Okay,
right.
we've had multiple questions now about the MM500, which I can't answer because I don't have
I
it. But
I
I
can't
wonder if you
either.
had it.
But I was so you correct me if I'm wrong. Do you still have an LCD 2 or do you have any Odyssey headphones? Okay, so my thumbnail was well placed.
I was prepared. Yeah, except I
All
don't
right.
have the rosewood, which looks so much better. I have the bamboo. This is a 2018 with 2021 genuine leather pads and the carbon headband. That's what this.
Ah, okay.
That's the Franken LCD2 almost at this
I have
point.
there's an LCD X sitting next to me here, but I have it's still in the case. But I was thinking. So yeah, the MM500 is super interesting to me because that's always been my biggest criticism of the Odyssey stuff is the weight, right?
Right.
And that's one of the things that I really found interesting about the LCD5. I was thinking the LCD5 for me, like I haven't bought a headphone in a long time because there's no reason, like it doesn't make sense for me to buy headphones because I never get to use them, right? Because I
Yeah,
constantly go
I
through.
know the struggle
Yeah,
when you're a reviewer, you don't listen to music. That
yeah,
doesn't happen. You
yeah,
evaluate the thing you're wearing. It's yeah, it's
yeah.
I know.
Um, but I think if I were to buy a headphone, like a high end one, it would probably be that LCD5 with the wider headband. No, you did. I know you didn't like the LCD5, and there are yeah.
Let's say you love that shout.
No. I mean, you know how you cue it, right? But like, uh,
Right.
and
I
I
just
and I,
had to EQ it so far, but
yeah.
anyway, I think
Well, I
I've
mean,
already given that rant.
yeah, yeah. I'm also cheating because of the use of a measurement rig. Like it's its own,
That helped.
yeah. But I was thinking about it because I was listening to it again. I was thinking, like I would probably buy that one even over the Susvara, like even over the Susvara. I would probably get the LCD5.
Wow, I think you changed your mind then.
Yeah, I did. I like by default, obviously, this is far is better. Like if you're in the no EQ gang, I think it's not really that
Oh
close.
yeah.
But there are things there are things about the LCD5 that I just love.
I feel
So
like its soundstage was like really unique. I didn't spend a ton of time analyzing that because it's hard as hell
yeah,
to actually get all the details on the staging, but it felt like some of the way things were positioned and the width, the difference between
yeah,
tracks was a lot, like even more different. Like the HD800 is just massive,
yeah,
but like the LCD5 is like if it just presents to you what the song soundstage was like supposedly supposed to be. It felt more like that.
yeah. Uh, I don't know. Like my
That was
my
cool.
complaint with that too, though, was for my big audiophile melon head. I can't handle the clamp, and so that's why.
Yeah, you
And I haven't
definitely got to
tried
get
it
the
with the.
wide.
Yeah, I haven't tried it with the.
Okay.
Big boy headband. So I need to
It
do that
didn't
still.
feel like it was that bad for me, so maybe they just started shipping them with wide by default. Actually, at some point, didn't they do that? I don't remember.
I think so. I mean, if they didn't, they should have, or they should
I
be.
think they got enough. Like, I mean, like I don't understand because like clearly the old headband worked fine, and it's nowhere near like I don't know why they changed the clamp for us
Yeah,
that much. it's not like someone's going to be monitoring with an LCD5.
Well, but I think it's also because the mechanical design there is slightly different with the way that
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah, like with the way the
everything.
jacks are
Yeah.
not inserted properly into the.
Yeah. Well, that's an issue too.
I hope they revise that. That's just.
Yeah.
I've shaken
Yeah.
my head at that brand about as many times as I've been like, "That's awesome." That's one of those things that's just like, wow.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, we should
Um,
probably let's see what else there
Someone
is.
says they like their MX Browns. I'm not going to go back into keyboards, but I actually still use a keyboard with MX Browns sometimes. I have this old deck keyboard that I've had for like 5 or 6 years with PBT keycaps. It looks new. It's had Browns. Nothing's ever failed on it. It just rattles like crazy with the stabilizers, and the switches just feels like sand now compared to like my newer keyboards. That's the only thing, but functionally, it's perfectly fine. Also, cherry switches last like forever. Like I don't
Yeah.
think I've ever seen one go bad. I think Linus did release a video where an MX Black went bad on his Steel series from like 10 years ago, but that's
What's
like
that,
impressive.
6G or 6V?
I think he had the 7G,
Oh, okay.
like the really really old one. That was
Those
back
are
like
so stiff, man. I
yeah,
can't.
the MX Blacks 80 grams is a lot. Yeah, but like seriously, the
Oh, yeah.
cherries are really reliable. But anyway,
We're
okay, I
back
said I
into it.
wouldn't get into keyboards. So,
Here's a question for you. Have you tried any of the new planar IEMs? The Timeless, the S12, or the Hook X?
uh, the 7 Hertz Timeless is the first one that came into the limelight, right? From I almost forgot the name of it. I did try that. I had Linsol, yeah, send
Yeah.
me a loaner. I would have kept having them send me loaners and send them back, except it's hard because I always say, hey, I need to ship this back to you. I'm not going to keep this for
Mhm.
free. And that's hard because they're all the way in China. So like I had to arrange with DHL, and yeah, it was a pain. But anyway, um, unfortunately, but fortunately, I did get to hear it, but nothing else from them from that point on. Nothing against them at all. The 7 Hertz Timeless was good. I thought that it was. I felt like the bass was maybe a little loose. Oh God, here we go with the spam again,
it.
but that'll get handled.
On
The
it.
bass was the bass was interesting because it sounded like planar, like it sounded like plastic planar bass, where it didn't have a lot of slam, but it had lots of like detail in which frequencies we're getting, or actually in the recording
Yeah.
down low. And then the only other thing I had that was problematic is I thought there was a annoying amount of sibilance on it sometimes around like 6K or whatever. Again, I probably didn't play enough with different tips, and it was probably caused at least partially by that, but like that's ridiculously good. I wouldn't say it's an A. I don't think I agree with Corinne saying it's like an A or like an A minus. I think that's too high. But wow, is it good for like $200? But I haven't heard the other two. What's the deal with the S12 and whatnot?
Yeah. So I agree with your take there. I would also not put the Timeless as an A. And I think the 6K issue, or it's like a treble sibilance issue of some kind,
It was
is
surprised the hell out of me because like
yeah.
I didn't remember seeing that in any graphs. And usually when you
Well,
get a graph
yeah.
that's I guess without the compensation for the peak
Yeah.
around 8K, even with that, yeah, without that, it didn't look like it was going to be super bright. So that was pretty weird.
Yeah. So, as it happens, I listened to the S12 this week, and the Timeless is better tuned. The S12 has some of the same sort of shrillness issues,
Okay.
but the S12 didn't have quite that same sort of like planar compression.
Okay, so they improved that.
Yeah, but I think at the cost of Soundstage, maybe, like at the cost of space and separation. So like I could actually see a preference for either one there, personally, and also like I found, like people talk about the planar timbre and the plasticky quality. I found that with the Timeless. Not everybody did though, and I didn't notice it that much with the S12. So I don't know, maybe it's some
Yeah,
slight difference there.
I'm not the biggest timbre head, although when it's good, I'm like, oh, this has good timbre. Now I remember what that is again, but like when it's not there, I don't really notice. It's one of
Yeah,
those
exactly.
things.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but
I,
yeah,
I,
I thought it
yeah.
was pretty good otherwise.
Yeah. The Rapco hook was also good, but the issue is the question about the open back, like walking around with open IEMs, you know.
Open IMs are like a very niche thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of like the
Uh,
LCD1. Here we go again. I'm
oh
gonna
man,
nuke myself saying that. But the LCD1 was so light and portable, but it's open back. So like,
hmm
wait, what?
yeah. So that's why I'm excited to hear that Edifier.
Someone said it was terrible on Reddit or
Oh really?
whatever, but
I mean,
I
yeah,
have
but
no idea.
yeah, there's
I
people who
find it
hate
hard to
everything.
believe that Odyssey would design something that's that far off for someone to be like, oh no, it's like not even close.
Huh.
Unless for some reason Edifier was like, nope, slam the bass, slam the treble all the way up in the DSP, and just
Yeah.
release it like that. Like I could see that happening though.
So I saw some measurements from
Oh
VSG.
really?
Yeah, VSG.
Oh okay.
Shout out to VSG, by the way, from Tech Power Up.
Yeah,
The
he's really good.
dude's
That's like the only like
yeah,
there are like no tech sites I would trust for audio reviews, but he is a really huge outlier on
yeah.
that.
He's
Very
dope.
good.
I love his stuff. Although that landscape might change. I have some thoughts on that.
Okay.
um, but but yeah. So he showed me some measurements of it, and it looks decent. The thing is, he's not using the same rig, so it's hard to compare exactly. I think he's using a version of the AliExpress one with custom pinna, so
So it's
not a,
like a 43 AG, but not.
it's yeah, exactly. It's like a 43 AG,
Okay.
but still custom pinna, I think. Which, like, I think I've said this before, but I think the best way to do it cheaply is to go with the AliExpress rig that uses the knockoff coupler, but then get the official Gross ear, and that way you're at least compatible up to 12K.
Is that what Kren did originally? I'm trying to remember.
No, he didn't.
Oh,
He originally he actually used a version of the mini DSP ears and found it to be
oh,
kind of
right,
close, just with the knockoff coupler that he was using, the 0045. But then he did buy the official Gross, and
right.
now apparently he's bought a B&K, which is exciting. So,
Yeah,
or
he's got
5128.
some. I guess he's probably waiting on it, like everybody else who's ordered one, because
Yep,
it's
yep.
it's pretty wild. Someone said something interesting. Oh yeah, this is a fun. The hot takes have already started. Here's one. Kren doesn't hear sibilants. You know, what's funny about that is even though I love Kren and I think he's probably the most well-known and one of the best IM reviewers, don't get me wrong, it is interesting that people will say that because I felt like the Blessing to Dusk had a really obvious issue also at 6K that
I
like
heard it too.
I
I heard it
don't
too.
feel like that many people were pointing out, even though it was like, yeah, this has got a sibilance problem. But like everything else about it was don't get me wrong, awesome. Like that is an amazing. I am the Blessing 2 is well liked for good reason. It is awesome. But like, yeah, I don't know what it is about that. And then there was the story about one of the really cheap ones had a serious peak and like, oh yeah, you just got to reduce 8K by like 10 dB or something, and then it's good. I don't remember which one that was. Maybe that was the whole KZ thing, which I don't want to even bring up right
Oh
now.
yeah, Jesus.
I forget. I forget which one that was, but it's funny
Yeah.
that you say that.
To come to Kren's defense a little bit, a lot of I think he's even sort of come out and said this, that a lot of his what he's doing is that snapshot first impressions thing, you know, the kind of thing where maybe, you know, he probably hears that the sibilance issues, but maybe on those snapshot impressions they're not as worrisome. And so for people who know that they're a little bit more sensitive or a little bit more, they would find that more bothersome over a longer listen, that's the kind of stuff that they would need to take into consideration.
Right. And
And
Adam just said tips and insertion death. We were talking
that,
about that
yeah,
for a
that makes
while
sense
when
too,
we were
yeah.
talking about my SA6 earlier. Yeah, that too. I don't think I rolled enough different tips. I'm like starting a SpinFit collection here. Not sponsored at all. Seriously, they just ever since I bought the first one, I was like, oh yeah, these are nice.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I didn't get like why, I don't know, to get back to the sibilance question, the i600 for me was like how is everybody not finding this way too bright and sibilant? But this is like, there's also like the fact of HRTF differences. Like DMS and I were talking about this in Munich, where he
Is
doesn't
that worse with IEMs? I'm trying to remember. Or is
HRTF
it...
differences.
Yeah.
So I think it is because as Corinne says, the manufacturers have to assume more. But it's kind of like, when like the differences that do exist matter more because that's all that there is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's not. It makes sense, right? If I found it really sibilant, right, I'm gonna think to myself, yeah, like how does everybody else not hear this, right? Or how's everybody else not bothered by this? But DMS legitimately was like, yeah, it's fine. And then some things that we heard there, he was like, that's sibilant, and I was like, it's totally fine. So like there clearly is that HRTF difference.
Yeah, and then someone, I think someone was pointing out, and then there's especially insertion depth, like there's always is it the primary resonance is near 6K for the ear? I don't remember if it's the primary one or at least one of them is usually
I think the primary
there's usually a resonance around there, depending on how deep
you mean like the canal resonance?
I think that's probably what I'm talking about, yeah.
I think the canal resonance is lower down, like I'd have to look at that image again. That's apparently wrong.
Yeah.
But
my point is that like a lot of IEMs seem to have some kind of subjective peak around 6K, and I always say it's subjective because like I think that same peak sometimes correlates with the 8K on the coupler, but in real life, like if you run a frequency sweep while you're wearing an IEM, you can usually show something around 6K.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the real design goal is, or should be, as long as you're not compromising whatever quote unquote unmeasurables like resolution, is to just reduce the resonance. And I think that's what Edinburgh took an extreme approach to that, which is like all the way so that the resonance is so high you can't even hear it. But there are other implications of that clearly. So
well, the other thing too though is that resonance is there. Like I know what you're talking about. Like you, so your method of finding these things. There's a pretty easy way of doing that with a Roux actually, where you can make it so that the tone tracks the cursor. And so you can basically just go, wherever, right? And you can go as slow as you want and as fast as you want.
I just use this website that generates a sine wave, but same thing, yeah.
Same thing, yeah. And what I found is that like no matter what, there's always for me it's at 6.1K where there's that at the emphasis. But I realized that like actually it's important for that emphasis to be there. Because
that's the other problem. Like
sounds you hear naturally occurring sounds will. They're supposed to sound that way, like as if they have a resonance. The problem is when that resonance is too strong, for example. And it's hard. That's why it's hard to kind of gauge where.
How do you figure out how much is supposed to be there? Yeah,
exactly.
That's another problem. I think I erroneously said to Mad once, like, oh, why don't I just listen to a frequency sweep and then like try to even out everything? And he's like, no.
Yeah, no, that's you don't want to do that. Yeah.
That's not how that works.
I've tried, and it's not right.
It doesn't. I did it based purely on sine sweeps, and then I went to listen to music, and I was like, wait.
Yeah, no. I tried that at Olive's request because we were talking about. He had me try out his earphone, which I mean, it did sound better after EQ, right? But I think that was sort of his description of technicalities. It's basically HRTF matching. That's what he's trying to do. But then trying to like have equal loudness above 5K made everything sound wrong. Like I mean, it wasn't fatiguing, I'll grant that, but it just is like everything just doesn't sound right the way that things normally sound. So I don't think I don't think we should be chasing equal loudness there. I see here. Yeah.
Someone said maybe it's because we were talking about tips.
Yeah.
Maybe we should stop doing that.
Jesus Christ.
I was talking about the CRN earlier. Yeah, that's right. Someone finally pointed that out.
Yeah.
And it was Brandon in here who here. This is your fault. My SA6 with the Triple Winzoni and
is Brandon on the headphone community?
Partially my fault. Yeah, CP360. I just recognized the avatar. I think it's the same guy from the forum.
Okay.
No, it's awesome.
Is it Nuance?
I think that might be his name.
Yeah.
I can never remember. It's a little different between the two places.
Just doxed him.
No, yeah, whoops. Yeah, so great recommendations. I was talking about the SA6 earlier, and Anyway, yeah. So the resonance, right? So the resonance is definitely going to vary. So Olive talking about the resonances that are different between people. That's a real thing, and one of the issue with equalizing, basically, period. Anything, whether it's IEMs or headphones, like it's never going to
Yeah.
be exactly the same.
Yep. I mean, that's why I think it matters to EQ to preference, not necessarily,
Right,
like you
and don't
could
just.
go
That's
into the
why
weeds on it.
I get so I get irrationally annoyed when people are like, "Oh, I slapped the oratory EQ," and I'm like, "That's not
Yeah.
even what oratory wants you to do." Like, if you ask him, you're like, "No."
It's just one of those things where like a little bit of information without the rest of the full context is more damaging.
Yeah, that's the problem.
I think
I never had a problem with him offering the presets. The only problem I had was like you really need to put like a disclaimer in like the template for
yeah.
creating the PDF that links to like this may or may not sound the same between every person on Earth
Yeah.
because that's a really important
Yeah.
distinction. So
Well, I mean, I went through the same process of discovering how bad that is, but I don't know how many people are willing to really go that
I know.
far.
That's the problem. So that's what I was saying earlier. Like this is also why like some people get the another false assumption. They're like, oh yeah, if you just EQ it, it's great. And Metal said that, oh yeah, you just EQ anything. No, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. It's not a substitute for doing good physical design on the
Yeah.
tuning. Like if you can eliminate the resonance, you can. I think this one, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong since you've done some design now. If you can eliminate one of the resonances in the headphone design, then you might be able to eliminate it for every ear, no matter where the peak is, possibly. I think. Because if it's the specific resonance, like
You mean in
the
the
canal
transducer?
resonance itself, yeah, like if you can physically design it so that it doesn't have a resonance there, I would hope that it's better for everybody and not just certain people with certain
The
resonances. I
Yeah,
don't know.
so probably depends on like it's difficult to tell because of the fact of ears being different and
That's true
um
too. I don't know how you
things
prove
that
that.
might show a null for one person might show a peak for another. So if you were able to actually measure at different eardrums consistently, which is something that I hope to one day be able to do, right? Because then you can see, okay, what's the actual, like, how much does this vary from person to person, from ear to ear, I guess.
Yeah, my
um
guess was just going to be like if everyone is having a peak somewhere near 6K, but not like exactly there every time,
yeah.
if you just reduced whatever was causing the resonance, maybe that would reduce it for multiple people wherever
Yeah.
their ears peak. But I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, it's hard to know,
Yeah,
because
that's
like
true. Yeah.
as another example, the DCA Stealth, right? That one measures extremely well, but Olive found it to have a significant 9K peak when on every measurement that I've seen of it, it's got that usual concha dip null thing there, right? Which is supposed to be
Mm.
there. So I guess that null for him is a peak based on the way that it interacts with his ear. So that's why it's very difficult to sort of control for this and make like that one perfect headphone that perfectly matches for everybody. But I think that you can probably still get things within reason to most people because ears are still ears, right? And then at a certain level you just have to bite the bullet and say, yeah, I mean it's not going to be perfect for every ear, and that's
Yeah,
why
that's
EQ is
just the way it is. But
important.
then you have to know how to figure out where the peaks are for your own anatomy, and that's just like
Yep.
nobody's going to do that.
No.
Only
No.
nerds
Well,
like us.
Blaine and I might. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
There was
I think.
a discussion here from Brandon as well. He says, speaking of Kryn, Linus responded to his video about LTD purchasing 5128 during the WAN show last night. I watched that segment
I
recently.
just watched that segment as
Yeah.
well, so we could discuss that.
Yeah. So, and actually, I do have a video coming out that's meant to be a response as well, not to that specifically, but just about the topic of LTT getting into this. And I feel like I could probably spoil that video now because not everybody's going to watch this. um, and the other thing too is that clearly I'm late to the party on that one. It hadn't really entered my mind. Plus, we were still dealing with all the stuff that we were working on from our recent trip to Germany and high end and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't on our radar. But so good job, Kryn, for beating me on that one. But everybody should watch that video from Kryn because he brings up a lot of really good points, and I think I basically echo those same sentiments towards it. But the one thing that I think is really interesting about this, and this is sort of what that video is going to be about, is there's a chance that the use of measurements in a major tech channel like that, it starts to sort of set the precedent or trend for any larger publication or media outlet or tech channel covering audio products. The same way that, like, you wouldn't, again, the same way that you don't, that every tech channel also now does benchmarks basically of, like tech products, right? I think there's a good chance that, a major player like Linus getting into it is going to have that kind of effect. There's of course a risk in that as well, that people will be like, oh yeah, I guess I need to put in audio benchmarks as well now, so let me get a flat plate microphone, or let me get a mini DSP ears, or worse, do what that one guy who's actually normally, like, he produces really good content, his channel is iPhone Doe, I think it's called. Ordinarily he does really good stuff, but doing things like, hey, listen to how the Sony, I can't remember the name of the headphone sounds, right? And I worry that people will because that's, like, effective. it's more effective than trying to get people to read squiggly lines, for example. Then that might be the outcome. But I think, again, this is why it's so critical that Linus is getting into this and honestly doing it right. Like, knowing the people behind this, they're going to be doing it right. But in spite of the fact that I think Kryn and I disagree with Linus's take there on sound demos, I think this is just, like, good for everybody. The fact that a major channel is getting into audio measurement.
That was definitely my major takeaway. It was like, it sounds like they're really going to try to do this properly, and, like, other than Tech Power Up, I don't think anyone else is really trying to do this properly like that. They're going out to prominent community members and reviewers who are known in the quote-unquote serious audiophile community and really taking the suggestions to heart, except for sound demos. But anyway.
No, actually, Sam's response was good there, by the way. Sam's, he nailed it. Like, there are certain sound demos that makes perfect sense to do, like the the ANC tests or isolation tests. Stuff like that. It's like,
stuff he's done on ratings.
Yeah, actually, I'm supposed to be hanging out with Sam tomorrow, I think.
Oh, really? That's
well, we're all in the same city, right? So.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that. All right,
I would love.
You gotta have him on here.
Yeah, I would love to.
Why hasn't he been on here?
Well, we'll probably talk about it. Yeah, I'll invite him on.
That sounds great. I'll watch that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would love to collab with those guys and Linus, and it just sort of makes sense that we're all in the same city. So
that would be great. What was I gonna say? Yeah, the sound demos thing is so, like, it's unusually polarizing. I think the only thing that I disagree with a lot of people on is just that I think relative comparisons are okay if you really understand. I guess that the problem is that, like, not everyone's really gonna understand what these are showing, and, like, all the variables involved. I think that's the main reason not to do them. But, like, I totally disagree with playing a track as is, just the original track, and then playing a headphone, because now you're like, you have to compensate the headphone somehow then, obviously. And so, like, what do you use? And then there's the problem of what the person on the other end is using, and then there's unit variation. Like, that's just, but if you want to say headphone X
coupling differences
is brighter than headphone Y, or the coupling differences, or right, there's so many variables, ridiculous. I can't even ever list all of them in one sentence. But, like, if you want to show, okay, headphone X is brighter, headphone X is more sibilant than headphone Y, like, playing a sample from one and playing a sample from the other, I think would accomplish that accurately. It's just that there's so many other variables in there that it's like, okay, that's not how the headphone actually sounds. It's just, this is what brightness sounds like. Almost. That's like all you're accomplishing there.
I would suggest that it's probably on the line of, like there's a way to do it where you could get, so the risk even in the comparative case is, like, you'd potentially have situations where the playback equipment is exacerbating things, making it so that even that is somehow like skewed, or like it like a peak gets fixed in one compounded result where it doesn't get fixed in the other. when ordinarily it's the opposite, you know. So there are those potential issues as well. But I think Blaine has talked a lot about this, and he actually thinks that there's probably a way to do it where it is the negative consequences or the sort of failings of sound demos can be minimized sufficiently.
It can be minimized.
Yeah. So like where even though you can't control for all the different variables with a mass audience, you can get a a more like some sort of like general trend, right? You could say the general trend of of headphones that most people are using, for example, would be this. So let's try and figure out a sound demo that works best for this. I'm just making this up. I don't know if that's actually his opinion, but like you can imagine scenarios where you can create boundaries, right? And then just make sure that your sound demo falls somewhere in there, and then you're giving a general result. But even that still requires significant caveats, that people need to understand.
I think that's the real problem. Like, it's almost like I really shouldn't have an opinion on this because it's us being like, oh yeah, no, this would be great, but that would be useful for me. Like, we're talking about anybody. Like, that's really technical to fully understand what the limitations of what they're about to listen to is. So I'm not sure the best way to handle it, but one of the ways to handle it is to not do it. And that's a guaranteed way not to mess it up, is to not do it. So but it's an interesting subject.
It kind of gets into a little bit like something that I have been more increasingly worried about recently, and I didn't used to think about this, which is the effect or consequence of on sort of the public consciousness towards things, of reviewer influence, things that like we try our best to like.
Oh man,
you know what I mean? Like,
don't get me started.
There's a certain kind of responsibility for reviewer influence that we don't. Well, at least I don't think about it that much when I'm doing my actual reviews, and then afterwards I realize, oh shit, there's a consequence to this. And that's really where some of my fears about sound demos come from as well, where the resultant effect
you're gonna
of this.
Start a trend?
Yeah, like
something?
There's things that you can't predict will be sort of the fallout from some of the things that get expressed. I mean, obviously you can't really control the fallout necessarily of sound demos either. And like maybe there's a scenario where we end up doing it, right? If Blaine convinces me that it's actually the best thing to do, but like I still have that worry about like
I have total faith if he says that's okay.
Wow.
However he decides to proceed.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. But like I still have that worry about like the effect of reviewer influence on things, and in the same vein, where like if I say, hey, I thought this was great, oftentimes my judgment about that has no thought towards how people are going to react to that, and the effect that that's going to have on their decisions whether or not to purchase things, right? And I probably should be more careful about that, to consider people's the way people are going to react to sentiment towards things, right? Or maybe all reviewers should be keeping that in the back of their mind.
There's a fundamental problem. Like everybody now wants instant gratification, and like, what's good? What do I buy?
Yeah.
Like, what is the thing? Like, I just want something that's good. And it's like, the problem with this hobby is that there's so much like subtext and detail behind almost everything that, like, if you ask me about a review afterward, I'd be like, oh yeah, but there's always like some other thing to consider. And it's like, man, it's very hard to, and if you go into those details in the review itself, the person's not going to watch it. So like, it's almost like you can't win.
And it's also one of the reasons why I am increasingly hesitant to comment recommendations based on EQ, but then it feels disingenuous to not do that at the same time. The reasons to sort of refrain from that is because, I should probably expect that people don't EQ, the EQ gang is comparatively small. And, so I think that's also something for me to consider, moving forward in any reviews, is that like, if I say, oh yeah, this is great, where the meat of it is like based on, with EQ, or here's the different small amounts of shelf filters or whatever, right? That on its own doesn't necessarily translate to the way that people view these products or the narratives that get formed around them. The great example would be the XC. Somebody mentioned it there in the comments, right? For me, that was like, yeah, that is one of the most technical closebacks, if not the most technical closback I've ever heard with EQ. Without EQ, that's there's I'd probably take the Noir without EQ, or like other headphones that have more reasonable tunings. But
I think it's fair. I think it's fair to recommend things with EQ, at least on this channel. Like, this is the type of channel where
yeah. But as we grow, it's
Andrew, like to make a Doug DeMuro joke, Andrew is the type of guy that
we need to
the
have
whole
that,
audience is like that. Yeah,
they have the weekend score and the I can't remember.
Yeah,
we could do the.
I'm surprised you watched that. I didn't think you were into
Oh yeah,
no, that guy's. Oh my god, it's that legendary.
Doug's great.
Of course,
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I in many ways want to style this channel after his stuff.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry for biodynamic owners.
Oh god.
Yeah, you can't do that in the beginning because of that.
Jesus.
Oh no, we've gone way off track. But yeah, I think my original point was like, yeah, I think given the audience here, of course, I think it's good to give that option. Like, hey, if you EQ, there isn't that much wrong with this, but yeah, it's a much larger audience. If the channel became like millions of subs, like it would be harder to make that point, I think. I guess.
Maybe I can like have some sort of like threshold. It's like if we hit 100K, no more EQ recommendations.
Yeah. You have to do what like Computer File does, where they're like, there's an extra bits video that's unlisted that's linked in like the description for like serious crowd only, like history behind this thing or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, to get back to Doug, he does the scoring thing, right? And I did that a little bit a long time ago, but like it was sort of half baked and not really well thought out.
I don't like ranking lists. Sorry, I just don't like the idea of ranking lists in general, because it's just like
ranking lists. It's so challenging.
How would I maintain that? I can't believe Kryn is able to maintain any sanity having 1,000 different things to think about every time he reviews something. It's like,
and you have to put a lot of disclaimers in, right, and caveats, and say, this is my ranking list, and if you would rate it differently, then that's great, like all those different things. Like it's not right. It's not meant to be like for everybody this is going to be how it is and how this recommendation is. But
the way I always thought about it is like, there's this price group, and okay, within this price group, here are some things that I think are good. Like,
that's probably
I don't
the
like
only
making an
safe way to
absolute list. That's hard. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. I think I like the idea of scores though in some capacity, because it's a very clear indication of a result. But I also think so like what ratings had done, right? Like, as much as we all had our sort of gripes with various different results there, it's very clear how, like, it's a very clear presentation of like an assessment or a judgment about a thing. And I like that idea about it. And so I think to myself, like how could we maybe take that idea and apply a different, like calibrate the lens on what that index looks like, or how we index on those things. Again, I'm using that word too much, I know. but there's something good there for the same reason that Doug's stuff, I think is good as well. And then if we're able to do that, maybe then there's a way where we can do, the EQ score is whatever.
Right.
And call it even the
with
score.
And without EQ scores.
Yeah.
With EQ, always 100 every time. No, there's headphones that really don't.
No.
They really don't. I think the problem with that, not problem, but limitation, is that like now you're going to be expected to show data proving all of those things: soundstage detail, EQ ability. Like, if you can do that, then but I mean, by then you've already solved reviewing probably.
Yeah.
So like,
I mean, that would be the ideal situation.
Of course.
I mean, like, leaving aside like things like detail, there are some things that we can do. I think EQ ability, pardon me, at the very least, that's one that can be done based on existing metrics.
Yeah,
so, for example,
I think there's more that we can do. Yeah.
Yeah,
just
like
not everything yet.
Yeah, it's more straightforward, because we can say like under 5K, we could create a threshold somewhere, right? It doesn't need to be 5K. It could be at 3K. Right, we could say under this frequency range, you can make these adjustments with minimal filters, and then the distortion is low enough where it'll take to it, right, where it's gonna not have problems, right? But if you have like a whole bunch of like really weird results and driver modes and all kinds of different stuff going on, where actually EQing it is very difficult and requires a lot of filters, then that would score worse, for example. Right, so
Or if, like,
that's an
there's
index
some
that I think is reasonable to do.
wacky 17K 20 dB peak or something that like there's no
Yeah,
way.
but like I think we probably couldn't do it above 5K because that's where all of that HRTF variation is starts to show up, you know, and it's like that's like
Yeah,
so hard to take into consideration, you know.
I think Karthik from Odyssey always said something like, if you're EQing above 2K, you can't do it based on a rig. Really, you have to actually like listen to it and check because there's too much variation up there from
Yeah,
one
like
ear to the next.
even I mean I think you could probably extend that a little bit further with with some sort of recognition of like what the majority of HRTFs have for ear gain, but at the same time,
Isn't that what the rig is supposed to do for you already? I
no,
guess 'cause
that's what I'm
it's an
saying is you
average.
could use the rig for that, right? But at the
Got
same
it. Yeah.
time, I think he's right in the sense that, well, based on what Blaine showed me, there's a lot of variation even for those features. So it is still like for me, I think there is a variation at around 2.5K. So you know, if I were to use the rig, you know, there's a chance that it wouldn't be perfectly accurate for me, even at 2.5. So
Yeah.
anyway, let's
Yep. Let's see. What do we got? We got oh, going to New York, and you're going to visit Audio 46. Yeah, nice people there. Last time I went to there and hung out with them at Can Jam, they were good. They even opened up some stuff for us. I was like, wow, really? Like stuff that wasn't there for demo. They were like, oh yeah, okay, we can open that so you can try it. I was like, whoa. So like, Audio 46 is cool. Really, if there's not really any advice I give you, just walk in and be like, hey, I want to demo the X and see
I thought you were
if
talking about 64
they
audio
have
for
one.
some reason. I was like, what?
No, 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 no.
I get what you're
Yeah,
saying.
Audio
Yeah,
46, the store in New
yeah,
York
yeah,
City.
yeah,
Sorry, yeah.
yeah. Um,
And then if you can go there in February, maybe I'll go to the next Can Jam. I still didn't end up making it this year because I was a little iffy about
oh, you didn't go
traveling.
to this
But
year's New York show?
no, I didn't actually. I thought I was planning to, but yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't end up going.
right at the height of whatever the latest wave
I think it was whatever
was.
the
Yeah,
whatever wave at the time. I think that's why I was like, I don't know if I want to do that
yeah.
because
Fair
my
enough.
job is everything now.
Have
Anyway,
have you gotten it yet?
what? No, somehow I've always had a really good immune system,
Oh, okay.
so I don't get sick very often. Even in normal times, I would get sick maybe once or twice in a year, which is really unusual. That's like kind of always how I've been. So maybe that's something to do with it, or I already had it when it was like
Could have
unknown.
been asymptomatic or something too.
Yeah, who knows? Or that. Yeah.
I also haven't had it. Knock on wood. But that's a picture of wood. That's not actually wood. Uh-oh, I'm gonna get it now. Oh, this is wood.
Picture of wood.
um, yeah, I also haven't had it, and I also don't have a particularly good immune system, which is and so it's why it's surprising to me,
That is
because I've definitely had exposure to
impressive.
it. So I think it might be one of those things where it's just like it bounces off me. Like that particular thing doesn't affect me.
You have a shield.
Well, yeah, I was telling my parents about this,
Invisible.
and they're like, yeah, well, you know, immortality is a strong genetic trait of ours. So maybe I'm actually immortal.
There we go.
But no,
Anyway,
I'm surprised. But
I hope next year I'll go to Can Jam. I'm sure Jude is angry at me
well, for not going.
because I was planning on going.
Oh,
Yeah.
I should be
Anyway.
going to SoCal.
Oh, really? Okay.
Coming up. Yeah.
What
I think
was the last one? Oh yeah, you guys went to Chicago? Didn't that just happen? Or
Chicago just happened, but we didn't go.
didn't go to that? Okay.
No. I mean, it's one of a ton more stuff that we filmed, but at a certain point, like we had to recognize that like there's only so much, I guess, interest in that particular trade show, and you know, like, yeah, we could probably edit another 5 videos with the amount of stuff we captured, right? But we gotta also talk about whatever else is coming up too, right?
Right.
So, but there is still one other video from that trip that's coming out, probably next week sometime. I don't know exactly when. But it's not actually even in Munich. That video was done in Berlin. So,
Got it. I
but
like
something
this.
else.
I like this. Beginners who are afraid of EQ should start with a graphic EQ. to get a general balance sound. I don't know about getting a general balance sound, but I know that the way I was always into EQ was I was playing around with like the old Sound Blaster software where they gave you an EQ, and I was like, I could do this. And actually, before that, you know what it was before that? Winamp. That's what it was before that. Winamp always had the equalizer. And so I've always been playing with that stuff since I was like
What
a preteen. I was playing with EQs of some kind.
what did you say? I can't remember how you phrased it. It was something along the lines of like you like to make adjustments to wiggly
Oh,
air or something.
oh yeah, that was a great tweet recently. It was like,
Yeah.
you know, like audio is just wiggly air, and it's like I'm a wiggly air adjustment enthusiast. I like to adjust certain
Yeah.
parts of the wiggly air.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think playing with a graphic EQ is a good way to start, though, actually, because you get to hear like, okay, oh, that's 4K, oh, that's 2K, and then like
Yeah,
once
you
you
learn a
start,
lot. Yeah.
you know, internalizing what those frequencies sound like, now you can expand it, and the parametric EQ just allows you to do, okay, now I can adjust narrow or wide bands of specific frequencies, but
It's the
playing
best
with
way to learn.
EQ, if you hate EQ, I don't care. Play with an equalizer and just learn like what the frequencies sound like, because that actually will inform whether you use it or not. That actually will inform purchases. Like I feel like you can better gauge what's going on in the frequency response just by listening to a headphone, just by playing with EQ. And I think that's where
Yeah.
my ability to pick up what frequency is what comes from in the first place is just having played with EQ for decades. So
It makes
you don't have to
reading
use
the
it, but it helps.
makes reading the graph easier.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that's like, how do I describe to people how to interpret a graph? Like, how do you get to that point? I think it's a combination of you have played with EQ a lot already because you have to know what the frequencies sound like first, and then you've heard a lot of different headphones and looked at graphs to see where the peaks might have been that you were listening to. And also
Hmm.
you have to really know what your music sounds like also, and having listened to your music on lots of different systems. So it's like you can't learn it in like a week
No.
of like how to read a graph and correlate it to be like, oh, that's going to sound maybe something like this.
Have you
That's the
done
hardest part, I think.
Harmon's How to Listen?
I think I tried it once. I didn't. It's not that I didn't get very far. I don't know. I don't know what I did. I think I opened it and then like I didn't go very far, and I was like, oh, that's fun. That's a good one though. I should really
Yeah.
go through that completely and see how far I get. It gets
That's
really hard though after a while. I've
yeah.
heard like if you want to pick out like 3K from 3.2K, like oh my god, I don't think I could do that by ear very well.
3K from 2K. Yeah, it's one of
No,
those
no,
where I think
3K from 3.2K.
oh,
That's
3.2.
like
Yeah, that's
like
tough.
3 to 2. I think I'd
You
be
could
able to
do,
do
yeah.
that, but 3 point like once you get really small
I think the
increments.
more you do it though, the more you would be able to.
Yeah, if you run through it a couple of times, you might
Yeah.
get surprisingly far. So actually,
Yeah.
that's a good exercise for maybe us to do on the regular. I hadn't even
Yeah.
thought of that.
It's something I've wanted to do. I just know I've never had the time to actually go through it. So it's
Yeah.
something on the radar for sure. The other
Music
thing
B. I used to use Music B. That's a good one too. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the other thing that I think about with that type of stuff where you're specifically like you're trying to make those kind like discern all that kind of stuff is that you stop listening to the way the music sounds, right? And
That's the
instead,
downside.
yeah,
You don't
exactly. It's a
listen to
little
the
bit
music
like
anymore. You have to listen
yeah,
to how it musics. How does the
exactly.
music?
You start listening to like when you're listening to music, you're listening to frequency tones instead, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that's 3K and that's 3.2K, but
The
it's really just like it's like a viola
yeah,
or something.
the sad yeah, right. The sad part of reviewing is that audiophiles listen to the equipment. It's a joke, but it's not really. Like we
Yeah.
listen to the equipment. We don't listen to the music anymore. It's like,
And
oh
objectivists
yeah,
just
put in
listen
this
to the test
specific.
notes.
Yeah, one literally just said it in the chat. Yep.
Yeah. Can you get monkeypox from headphone sound demos?
What?
uh,
Okay.
Rob with the best comments, of course. Uh, I do see here JTB says I just ordered the topping A90 and ignored Andrew's negativity. I'll find
Andrew
sometime this
is
week if it was a mistake.
It's gonna whoop you.
Yeah, let me endorse. Let me just fully say that the A90 is an excellent piece of equipment and measures very well. Just
I
make
think
sure you run it balanced, because if you run it single-ended, like with RCA's, and you have a USB DAC, you'll get noise floor issues.
Yeah. I didn't DMS recently say he liked it too.
What's
Is
that?
that a fundamental disagreement with you and DMS? Does DMS also like the A90 and you don't? I don't remember.
Some Well,
Or
okay.
maybe he likes it with some headphones. Maybe that's what he was saying.
And I think that's actually probably a reality. I don't hate the A90, I think, as much as the fun story about me hating the A90
Yeah, it's sort of a meme
is.
now, I guess.
It's more that the A90 sort of represents something that I think is a golden calf in audio, and that we chase this particular thing that doesn't really matter, but that doesn't
Negative
mean
150 dB noise
no, they
floors and
can't
like
even
THD. It's like
but they can't even, like, on all those rankings, like the Synad stuff, that's not the limits of where the equipment can potentially go. That's
it's
the
true.
limits of their test and measurement equipment.
Yeah.
So it's like you could go way higher, right? But it's like the question is, like, do people see it that way? And I think probably not. They're just buying it based on a ranking, based on some preconceived notion that's not real.
Maybe this is the wrong audience, but it's almost like the argument of, oh yeah, the automatic is much faster than the manual. It's like that's like basically solid states versus tubes in amps. I think kind of it's like, okay, one is way more involving, it measures terribly, and the other one is way more pure and better number wise, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to enjoy it more. So it depends.
Wait, which
It's
one is the
sort of like
tube and
that.
which is the solid state?
Oh, the solid state is definitely the automatic.
Yeah. Okay.
Like modern like dual clutch automatics are way quicker to shift and shift very crisply and precisely because they're all computer controlled and like
I mean, you could go further and say CVT.
yeah, exactly. CVTs are technically even better than that. Yes, that is correct. But a manual is way more involving and slower. But
Yeah, I really like
the
this
torque,
analogy. That's great.
yeah, I don't know. I hadn't thought of that before, but it seems like it's applicable here. So
Yeah. So
oh, I answered a question from 2 hours ago. Oh, well, at least I answered it.
someone was asking about the comparison, asking for the comparison between tubes and.
Oh, is that what it was?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I'm speculating. I have no
Somebody
idea.
did.
But no. Someone says here Adam says can't wait for the A90 versus
Yeah, I
Rebel
like
Amp
that
blind
one
test.
too. That's gonna be fun.
So I mentioned this earlier, but yeah, the switcher does work, and I have been doing it, and it's been revealing things to me, like about sort of like how significant the psychoacoustic effects are with source equipment. Even in judgments that I've made in the past about it, many of the results that I'm getting from this so far is that it really is insignificant. Like I said it was insignificant before, and I've always thought it's been insignificant, but this has been demonstrating that's even more insignificant than I thought. Right? To the point where, well, that's not to say that like there aren't differences in cases where things are actually tangibly different, right? But when we have situations where we're testing, well, as an example, the A90 versus I can't remember which one. I did do the A90 versus something, and I was like, yeah, like gun to my head, I couldn't tell a difference. So it's obviously it could be with what the particular headphone I was using had an effect or whatever, right? Like there's all kinds of different things that we could talk about there. But in that particular situation, I was thinking to myself, this really confirms that like there's not that much reason to give a shit about this stuff.
The
So
funny part, the funny part about that is I've been told multiple times, it's like, no, you can't do that. You can't use AB. You have to get used to one of the amps for a couple weeks, then you got to switch, and then you hear it. And I don't know if I buy that argument either.
I mean, I have reservations about the whole AB thing as a replacement for reviews, right? Because I think that's one of the suggestions is, well, you can't be reviewing stuff unless you AB. And I think, okay, well, yeah, AB is fine to include. It's an important
to include.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yes,
useful.
it's useful. Yeah,
But it's not like we shouldn't overinflate AB and say that this is the only thing that matters. Because I think there's other things that are going to matter when it comes to like what the sort of judgment is about, like you can't really give that much of a description if you're only able to identify a difference in one particular thing. For example, oh Jesus Christ,
here we go again. USB cables make a difference. Well, I'll let Andrew handle that one next too.
Yeah, they do make a difference because you need, if you're running a DAC with USB, you need to be able to connect it to something. So that's.
I like optical.
No.
Everywhere.
So the spirit of the question is, should we care about the fancy USB cables? And my answer there is like, I've actually had times when USB cables are broken, and so in that sense, get USB cables that aren't broken. But I don't think you need to spend any different amount of money on a USB cable than you ordinarily would to get one that's not broken. If that makes sense. Yeah, it's just USB makes a huge difference. If you take it away, you get no sound unless you use optical.
I'll always use optical. Imagine not being galvanically isolated. No one has ever said that sentence in their entire life ever on this planet.
Yeah. So I'm catching up here with some of the passion for sound and experiment to prove that USB cables make a difference. Can't wait for
that's what I was commenting on.
So I saw that video and I thought to myself, there are two confounding variables. I like that they did that. I thought that was kind of a cool, like, getting into that is a good thing, as we are too. But I couldn't help but think that they didn't externally validate the headphones and the amplifiers to know that they were actually playing at the same volume and that the frequency responses were the same, right? Because they're using two different headphones. Well, they're using two different units of the same model, right? So it was the Empyrean, I think they were using, and then two different units of the same model of amplifier. And I think that was supposed to be that these are the variables are the same. But the problem is that in reality those variables are not the same. There's always a potential that they'd be slightly different, or that the level matching isn't exactly the same. Because even if you level match without pink noise, like using an externally calibrated system, 1K on one headphone isn't necessarily going to be at the same SPL as 1K on that other headphone, meaning that your whole experiment gets sort of messed up as a result. So I think the trick for them, if they're going to do this more, is to like put additional sort of constraints and controls on that, and maybe
control everything as much.
Maybe
possible,
use the same headphone, maybe the same actual headphone, and then
they didn't use the same exact unit.
Yeah,
during that test.
From what I was seeing there, and that's why.
How is that valid?
Well, my bigger, like, I would have less of an issue with that if it were something like the Sennheiser HD800S, for example, and then that if they externally validated, level matching and with pink noise and all that stuff, right? But there was I didn't see any indication that they were doing that. Maybe they did, and they just didn't mention it, right? So.
But whenever I hear something like that, my mind is immediately like, dude. Unit variation is probably like an order of magnitude more different between headphones than the difference between DACs and amp. That's how small it is. Like, it's not unhearable. It's just, it's really small.
Yeah.
At least between solid state in particular, like, it's really small.
Yeah. I was thinking also like the one thing they did mention, I think, was that they made sure that the amplifiers were at the same like the either the. I don't think it's actually volume knobs in this particular unit, but like the equivalent of like having the volume knobs be at the same point. But even that doesn't necessarily mean that it actually is. Oh Jesus Christ!
That's getting worse.
But you know what? The fact that we're getting hit with these spam bots is
a big stream.
It's an indication that we're successful in some manner. So. Not to say that we should welcome the spam bots.
I know. I like this one. He used a Meze headphone first mistake. Ouch. Yeah. I still have not heard the Elite at all, but it sounds like it's better. It's just still not $4,000.
I'm excited for people to hear that Meze 109. I want to
asked about that earlier too. Maybe you want to expand about that.
I want to get that in. It's hard to know from show conditions, right? And it did sound like there was some coloration there, but it was one that I totally didn't mind at the time. I was thinking like, this is this nice sort of U-shaped, pleasant, chilled out listen that I
You didn't Antonio say like this is not the same target we know as the other
yeah
products, but we thought it was cool. Something like
yeah
that, basically. Yeah.
yeah, and it was one of the times where like because ordinarily I think we get really caught up in the whole like let's get things to sound like super referencey, right?
Harmon
And
combined. The
well,
ultimate
or whatever you
target.
want to do for that, right?
Yeah.
You'd even go Harmon 2013 for some products, but you
Yeah.
know, the idea of trying to chase that, he was able to sort of describe it in a way where I stopped caring about that, and then I started listening to it. And I was like, yeah, I can see it, I get it, you know, like what they're doing. So,
Sorry, I can't get over this. The head show.
what do you, the head show?
This is the head show. It's all
Oh
about the
man,
forehead.
if I take my hat off, then it
It's
becomes the
the head
forehead show.
show.
uh,
I like that.
yeah. Someone saying block that user. I banned them, but there's new accounts that get created, right?
With
So
the same name apparently every time. Wow.
yeah, so some
Oh,
subtle difference. Yeah.
someone hasn't heard of the 109. Wait, I'm so confused. Is it open or closed? I still don't
So
even
109
remember.
is open with
Yeah,
a
okay,
totally
okay.
custom driver.
Okay.
Um,
Dynamic
and
still?
what? Yeah, dynamic.
Okay.
Yeah. It's more comfortable than the 99 significantly.
I
It
think I
was
still have a
unbelievably comfortable.
99. Oh boy. I got
Yeah.
someone from them a long time ago. It's just, but I asked them, so I must have asked them like 3 times. I'm like, where are the original pads? The original pads. I said the original pads, and they're like, no, they're not made anymore.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well then it's gonna get a review like it's gonna get.
Yep.
But it sounded like they made a third rev or something much later on the 99, and
Yeah, I'm not
they
sure.
they had some thinner pad. Maybe that's the drop version has a thinner pad option, but it still didn't measure that great. I don't know what happened. I just know that Tal praised it a lot, and his measurements look good from the original.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they revved the pads, it got messed up. Kind of like what happened to Odyssey and the 2018 memory foam thing.
Oh man.
Uh,
Yeah, it's amazing how just like the smallest little changes in like a run or manufacturing process can have these sort of, significant downstream consequences. It's
yeah,
sometimes
I
for the
think
better, like the Hi-Fi Man pad change on the
I think I remember. I think either Karthik or Shankar told me once that like if you measure the Odyssey drivers in free air
Hmm.
or something like that, it is like absolute textbook straight line perfect. So a lot of the tuning of the design is like totally up to the pads and the enclosure and the
Yep.
foam. Like it's so important because it's like most of what
Yeah.
tunes it to be whatever it is, and so
Yeah. So
that's one reason why I think.
what they do often is in planar transducer designs, they'll have ways of measuring. Like a lot of groups will do that. Well, they'll measure, the drivers basically in a system that is like it's free air, like as if it were perfectly, you know, disregarding any system with the eardrum or like coupling or anything like that. Is the driver itself perfectly linear, right? And then they'll build out from there. And this was the same thing that I think I found with the G200, the Odyssey
Oh, is that the
inspired.
same thing that their driver is really good
Well,
with the right pad?
so
Fall
this
to
is
the
the thing.
pads
It's
again.
not. It wasn't perfectly linear because it still had that resonance and then dip somewhere in the mids there, right? But it
Yeah.
didn't have the CSD issues. And then yeah, like all of the darkness and the lack of ear gain and the like old school Odyssey tuning aspect to it was all down to the pads, and it made me think like yeah, like the Odysseys could have.
Your review was convincing. I was like, wow, they finally made something that's like not polarizing or tuned with really weird.
Well,
So
that's
that's
yeah,
good.
yeah. The
I haven't heard the other harmonic dynes or whatever, but
well, no, I think it is polarizing. To be clear, it is polarizing and
oh,
tuned
just
weird.
because it's kind of yeah.
It's
Well,
it's
it
just
sounded
that
a lot better.
the driver itself is like the driver is so much more capable than those
Okay,
older
okay.
M1060s. That's really what the key is there. So
All right, what other questions do we have? I do still have the ALS. I just haven't been listening to it that much. I spend so much. You know what? You know what it is? You're gonna laugh, but I spend so much time with these stupid things. The Pixel Buds. Why are these so good? I don't get it. Like, and I got these for free because I bought the Pixel 6 Pro because it was a pre-order.
so you
And
mean you
like,
didn't You weren't inclined to message Google and
No,
send
yeah,
back
right.
the
Me having a
Pixel.
connection with Google, forget about it.
Uh,
I've heard though that these companies like Apple and Google, they have serious audio research departments. Like, the only difference is you just won't be reading their research because it's so like hush hush. But they have some serious sound people, and so
mhm.
I was so surprised by the Pixel Buds. I actually might get the Pixel Buds Pro when they come out next month just to see if they can tune them that well, and I can get ANC too. Then that could be really interesting.
They're reasonably detailed or no?
They're not. These are not the most detailed thing in the world. They're like $100 too, and but the FR is so balanced overall as an IEM, and I was like, wow, that is really cool, and it doesn't massively overdo the bass. And in fact,
Mm.
even if it sounds like it, you can adjust it in the app. You can turn it way down to like almost flat. By default, it's a little boosted and maybe slightly annoying, but it still doesn't bleed much either. So it's like it's not the most detailed, but it's just the fact that it has very competent tuning and is a true wireless.
Yeah.
It's like
It's amazing
really
how much that
super
matters.
rare. It's
Like,
so much, especially with something like this. Like when I think true wireless, I'm like, okay, this is not going to be an audiophile thing, but like you get so far if you can tune it well without having to mess with a bunch of filters.
mhm.
What's the other question? Favorite?
Well, I just see here someone's asking
Uh,
if they can expect a Final Audio UX3000 review.
oh,
Let me just show you this, the glory.
what is that?
This is the this is the new hyped ANC headphone that everybody's talking about.
Oh, I forgot
Um,
about that.
that actually one of our IEM writers told me about FC Construct. He's like, hey, check out the Final Audio UX3000, and then I checked it out at the high end show, and I was like, wow, I need to get this in.
Is it
So
still good?
it's exactly what you said. It's like it's cheap. It's like $150, right?
Oh,
But
wow. Okay.
yeah,
That's
but
really cheap. Final. Okay.
yeah, but it's the ANC is okay, the comfort is okay, but the sound quality is like the
Like the
tuning is
tuning.
just so much
Yeah.
better than every other ANC headphone. It really gives competition to that.
Now I really
AKG.
want you to do that combined against the edifier.
Yeah. Well, so I actually, it's funny because I had two units here. One of them was a little bit more W shaped than the other one, so there is still that unit variation thing that goes on, with these. And the W shaped one had the Shakira effect that I wasn't too fond of, the
Oh
throatiness,
no.
I think singing like falling off a cliff.
Yeah, that I think the overarching point I was trying to make was I don't even use the big boy headphones I own that much anymore because
Right.
like I sit at a desk at work already like 8 hours. I'm a software engineer, and like when I get home, I don't want to sit at a desk again and another like the whole night. And of course I have to because
Yeah.
this is gonna fall off your head if you're not like sitting down.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, they don't get as much use, but
They're not your
what
gym
I can
headphones.
do, yeah, what I can do is this stupid True Wireless collection that I'm starting. I've got the Moondrop Sparks, the WF1000 XM3, the Pixel Buds A. Maybe I'll get the Pixel Buds Pro. I have the Earfun that
Yeah.
Olive sent me a sample for free to play with the EQs and whatever with. And that's also kind of the same idea. It's like definitely not the most detailed or great soundstage, but like you can get the tuning
Yeah.
surprisingly decent.
I
Anyway, so that's what's going on.
makes me want to go do more, Andrew goes outside videos because
Yeah,
find I
I
just
think
never.
everyone seems to like those.
Yeah,
like that.
I never use the like the true wireless stuff. When I'm actually like walking
Really, that's
around,
like the ultimate place to use
it
them,
would
I
be
think.
perfect to use it. Yeah,
Yeah.
go for a hike or something.
If you're going to review more of those, then and
Yeah,
actually trying them in public is an interesting test in itself.
yeah,
One of the things that I feel like I don't think it's mentioned that much, but I think one of the reasons why boosted bass on true wireless is actually a good idea a lot of the time is because I feel like when you're riding in a car or whatever, and if you don't like, especially if you don't have ANC true wireless, like you have to like overcome some of the the external sound.
yeah.
And one way to do it without destroying your ears is to add a little extra bass there. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one who feels that way, but
I
that's
think
one
it's the
thing.
same too for people who are on planes or
Even
trip.
closed backs, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely planes too. But like, you probably want ANC at that point.
yeah. It's funny.
Uh,
On the recent trip, I took these and I was like, that's actually surprisingly good for, you know.
Wait, what are you wearing right
Oh,
now?
sorry, this is the 64 Audio U6T.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So this is
Not the U12.
yeah, U6T is actually probably more. It's the more fun version.
Okay, I see.
A little less smooth. It's got more colorations, but like they're ones that I'm
Yeah.
into. Sorry, I just see another comment there from Brandon
Yeah.
asking what our opinion is of Tech Power Up's measurement rig and process. So we did talk about that a little bit, but yeah, I think Tech Power Up are one of the few tech publications that are, well, at least their headphone writer is he puts out extremely high quality stuff. So you know, for the measurement rig itself, I think the only issue that I would have with it is that I don't think you can use any version of Harman unless you're using the anthropometric pinna. This is something that I was chatting with Karthik about as well. But you know, like, I think people will use Harman, like the reference target there, because it is so highly smoothed, and then in a sense it's like, okay, yeah, maybe there's ways that you're using other ears, but like the problem is that you're not going to get results that you're going to consistently get results that the rig was sort of designed for, or sorry, the target was designed for or baked into. So you're going to end up, it's going to end up having some sort of like inaccuracy relative to the target. And I think for any time you're using a custom pinna, you need to also use a custom target. That's sort of my take there. And I think so the way that I would do it is also to I need to talk to him about this because I'm not totally sure exactly what the differences are with his rig, but to basically try and find you know, the DF HRTF, smooth it a lot, hit the
rig,
tilt,
okay.
yeah, or apply the tilt, you know, the shelf filters, like below 100 hertz and above 2.5k, and then you'll get something that's closer to that includes the preference filters, that's actually closer to the actual rig that they're using, rather than relying on something that's based on a totally different rig. So that's the only criticism I have there. But I love his stuff, and I'm so, you know, hyped on. Basically, he puts out a review, and I'll read it no matter what. So, yeah.
Yeah, stuff is great. Someone was asking earlier, what's my favorite Odyssey? Oh, I've seen Jerome Mall around before. That's a familiar name. Favorite Odyssey. You know, it's very specific. Here's what I would want if I wanted one Odyssey. I want the LCD4 with the pads before the memory foam pad revision, so the original pads like Fluxes, and with the LCD4 Z chassis styled like the oh man, what's that really limited one that was like the
LCDR?
LCD2? No.
Oh, I know the one you're
all
talking about.
black one. Oh, the 24. It's styled like the 24.
Yeah.
All black magnesium chassis LCD4 with the pads that don't exist anymore. So yeah, obviously I can't quite get that, but
Yeah.
that would be what I would buy. Because I feel like one of the things that happened to the 2021 pads is they got slightly brighter. Like the mids improved from the 2018, but I feel like they might have even more air now than they used to have
Yeah.
before the memory. So like,
Yeah.
anyway, that's the ultimate Odyssey if it ever existed. I got close to asking if I could special order. Oh wow, that was fast. It came right back that time.
Yeah. It's
Um,
gone.
I got close to special ordering once an LCD4 with the mag chassis because I think that's actually possible, but I never actually went all the way through with that.
So that's why
But
I'm
my
excited
current,
for the MM500,
yeah,
because it could be that.
yeah, the MM500. It sounds like from asking them about it briefly, it sounds like it's not nearly as aggressive as the LCD5. So it's definitely not like an LCDX though,
Yeah.
because it's not like relatively no mids. It's still like the 5, but not as like Shout City in my opinion. I cannot. I feel like the LCD5 is shoutier than like a 600. It is.
It is.
Really up there. Like
It is.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I'm like, this is an Odyssey tuning. Like
It's so
but that's
different
what
from
I thought.
everything
It
else
has
that they-
so much capability, obviously, which is why you love it with EQ.
Yeah.
But it's just a little too much. I think I ended up dropping the mids like 6 dB on it when I was playing with it. And I was like, finally, I think I can tolerate this now. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I just
Yeah.
don't want to have something that I need to run that much EQ on. I tried that with the HD800. That had like 10 dB filters going on with the HD800. And it's like, what am I doing? That's when I switched to the 2F.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Um,
that is promising though.
yeah. I think so. I was asking one of somebody from Odyssey. I can't remember who was about this, but I was asking about if some of that parallel Uniforce stuff's going to make it trickle down to some of their other models, for the
Oh, is that
sake
what
of.
are they using that in the MM as
So
well?
that's what I don't know, and I
Okay,
mean
okay.
maybe right. Like I think it'd be really cool if they
I
were.
couldn't remember if they announced that
Yeah,
already or not, if they were doing that. I don't know.
yeah. But the benefit there is that it's much lighter because you can do single sided while still getting more
Oh, is
that same
that the
sort of.
main reason why they did it? Okay.
Yeah, you can do
And
single
did they do
sided
that
and
with the
keep
R also? I feel like
R is.
isn't that what introduced the parallel
It,
uniforce? I
it might
thought.
have been. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but yeah, you
Anyway,
can
yes. Yeah.
you can keep the uniform movement of the diaphragm without needing double sided, which is pretty cool. I mean,
That's
now that's also like their whole thing is to go also ultra low distortion, right?
right.
And so not compromising on that, I suppose, is probably is pretty cool still.
I mean, that's great, but like THD is not very noticeable by humans
No,
either.
but
So like,
but given that we EQ the shit out of these anyways, we had
that's
10
true.
dB
Like,
bass shelves and have all kinds of fun with that.
I admit I have put like a 12 dB bass shelf on the 2F at one point, and then put my Atom on high gain on maximum, and it was like, okay,
Oh,
it's hilarious. It literally vibrates against like your head, and there's not even the slightest bit of clipping anywhere. It's so stupid.
what was the frequency you used?
Oh, I always put the shelf at the same spot, like 105 hertz.
Oh wow, that high. Yeah, that's I was doing it at
Yeah,
70.
it's basically like a Harman shelf. Yeah, I don't think Odysseys need 105. You're probably right. Like they probably have a better character if you move the shelf down more. I got 105 from looking at Oratory's
Mm.
boosts. I was always using like 100 or so, and then I was like, oh, Oratory used 105 here on a completely flat headphone. I'm gonna do that from now on. Apparently, that's the official Harman
Yeah.
bass shelf frequency. Metal571's inner thoughts that no one cares about, but that is
No,
that is what happened. 105.
it's also very specific.
I
Like
know it's
it's like
weirdly
not,
specific.
not
It really
100,
doesn't
105.
matter.
Yeah. But yeah,
But yeah, it's ridiculous how much excursion. Like,
yeah.
I also asked them about this. I was like, your website says like 5 watts, like stupid power handling, and I'm like, what is the limit of this thing? And basically, what I think it was Shankar told me, he's like, well, you know what? Actually, what will happen is before the driver hits like a max SPL, you're gonna burn up the traces from how
Yeah,
much current like you can
I heard the
put
same
through
thing.
this thing. I was like, oh my god.
I
So
heard, or like the things are gonna fuse together somehow and melt or
yeah,
something.
they're really serious. Like I guess the traces on the diaphragm will get too hot and will actually
Yeah,
like melt and screw up. Like that's crazy.
yeah, yeah,
So they're very serious about like literally no distortion and absolutely massive volume if you actually needed it for some reason.
yeah.
That would definitely be Amir's favorite, wouldn't it? At that point, someone just mentioned it.
I love how, yeah. I mean,
At least it wouldn't fail that test.
it's funny because he's now introducing subjective takes in his reviews, which is fun.
Yeah, it's some. I guess he must have ramped it up then.
Yeah, he now starts. Yeah, I've seen a bunch more now, basically. So I think he's basically biting the bullet,
That's fun.
or has some admission that there's more
Until
to it.
like I said earlier, until we can figure out through
Yeah,
research what these other metrics are in terms of numbers, then like I
yeah,
don't know any other way to review a headphone today.
yeah.
You have to include some of it.
Speaking of DACs and amps and the Atom specifically, um, I actually have. So this weekend I'm going to try some fun stuff at the office. I've set up the Atom stack next to the DCS Lena, uh, the
What?
DAC clock and amp
Oh,
DCS
that
Lena stack.
DCS.
So
Oh
I'm
my
gonna be
god.
having
Was that
some
like
fun with
30
that.
grand or something, I think?
I don't know how much it is, but it's ridiculous.
It's dumb money, yeah.
Yeah,
That's all you
and then
have to do.
we also have I think there's the EF1000 Hi-Fi Man, like 15 grand one. So like there's a bunch of different ones I'm gonna try, and the Atom Stack is gonna be the like objective reference
The
point.
control.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you can
So
also put an A90 in there for
yeah,
another
we could do that too.
objective
I
control.
make sure
Yeah,
there's enough power, right? Because like the Atom,
that's
that's
true.
the,
Yeah.
probably the only limitation there.
Yeah, the Atom is not the most powerful.
Yeah.
It doesn't burn up the traces on my Odyssey, so
No matter how much you try.
and yeah, no, I don't do that very often. It's just very amusing. Maybe when I've had a couple of drinks, I do that, and it's very, very amusing then. It's like, oh, this can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, it's just fun.
Yeah. Let's do a couple more questions.
Yeah,
We'll go in.
almost 2 hours, but
Yeah.
I'm good to do like 10 or 15 more minutes. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Um. Yeah, I'm happy to stay indoors today because yeah, as I said, the heat wave is it's rolling through, and I get
Yeah, I
extra
think
crispy when I go outside. No, I actually don't. I
Sorry,
don't really
sorry about some of the background noise. My air conditioning almost running constantly. Keep this room cool down. You hear it's like,
Yeah.
again, like 90 American freedom units.
Yeah. Someone says, I'm thinking about getting 64 audio A12T CIM. Do you guys recommend anything over it, or do you think it's still good? I honestly, I can't tell you about the CIMs, and I generally don't recommend CIMs only because it's so difficult to predict what that's actually going to sound like. And once you go down that route, you're basically locked in, right? Whereas universals, you have a lot more information about that available, and so it's easier to make judgment calls about it. And
Is there some general like difference that happens with custom? I guess there isn't, and I guess that's your point. Like you don't really know how
it's
much
hard to know.
what the
Yeah.
FR will do with a slightly different shape. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a hard time recommending customs personally, and I don't want to be sort of like on the hook for a recommendation for something that I've never been able to try. So
Oh yeah, you haven't had a custom before?
no,
Kind of an audio file.
yeah, I know.
I haven't either, but like, why? You can't even sell it either. That's the
Yeah,
other thing. Like,
yeah.
what do you do?
So you have to really care about the
Wow.
custom factor there, and I'd almost recommend if you do go customs to get ones that are like less end game, because then you'll at least the consequence isn't as high.
You haven't thrown away a full $2,000 at it, like.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I
one of my
guess,
ear holes is smaller than the other. No.
well, I think some people can use like different size tips on each.
Yeah.
I've heard of that, and it works pretty well. So,
You can get gauges to stretch out your ear canal.
oh no.
Don't do
And
that. Don't do that.
it really looks like I'm a salesman for these people again, but SpinFit has like on some of their models, they don't just do like small, medium, large. They have like extra small, small, medium, medium, large. Like there's a lot of gradations there, so
Yeah.
you can try like slightly different sizes on each ear or something like that. What was someone? Here's a common question, so I'll answer this one really quick. Someone said, "Can I blow up?" Or basically, they said, "Can I damage the LCDX with an A30 Pro?" So with really efficient headphones and IEMs, just by using a mega powerful source of any kind, like amp, is not going to damage them. What will damage them is if you turn up the volume on that really, really, really high, you could damage something. But just the act of using a very powerful amp with an efficient headphone is not going to damage it. It doesn't draw more power than you're going to feed it just by plugging it in.
Is the A30 Pro are they talking about the topping?
I really don't know
I
what they're talking
don't know
about.
what
But
that
it
is. Yeah.
sounds like that's the common question about like the LCDX or like what is it, the Andromeda or whatever. Like, can I blow up my headphone by using a powerful amp with it? No. Well, yes, you can, but it's not going to happen on its own. Maybe that's the question. If it's not, correct me. But
I also think the Andromeda. So the Andromeda is far more sensitive than the
oh, it's
LCDX.
really, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've heard it's like doesn't it have like 8 ohms or something ridiculous?
So the Andromeda. Well, it's not even about the impedance. It's about the sensitivity, right?
It's also
So
super high sense. Yeah.
I want to say it's over 120. Like it's ridiculous.
120 dB per volt.
Let's find out. Let's find out.
That's
It's
really
so ridiculous.
That's like at least like 16 or 18 dB higher
So-
than like most headphones.
So the Andromeda is the reason why Synad is pointless because, and the reason why you can't get a safe value with Synad, it's the Andromeda and IEMs like the Andromeda, but specifically that one because that one's well known, right? So the sensitivity, so reading here from Google, the sensitivity of the Campfire Andromeda headphone is 141.54 dB per volt SPL by the voltage. And no, but so that's slightly different. 120.98 dB per milliwatt SPL power.
140 per volt is the more useful number because that does not involve the impedance at all. That's just like a pure, like if you put 1 volt, 140 at 1 volt, dude. That means if you that's like wow.
And this is why the noise component to Synad, it would technically need to score better than the measurement equipment can handle for that for that number to matter, right?
There are modes on amps just because of the Andromeda pretty much. I think, what is it, like, isn't the IE match mode on some stuff like specifically designed for things like that, I think.
Which, I mean, in some ways, if you I could see someone saying, well, that's just a bad design. Or someone could say, well, if we remove that from the equation, then we can find a safe number.
I kind of.
The answer is you probably could.
Why would you? That's dangerous if you accidentally have your volume at the wrong setting, especially on a digital volume control somewhere. Man.
Yep.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. So that's why. Anyways, that's a rant topic.
But yeah, you can. But yes, it is safe to plug in. Technically, it's just you got to be careful how to turn it up.
Well, you could plug it into just about anything, and not play anything.
Your pods on high gain, it still will be nowhere near as sensitive as the Andromeda.
Yeah.
140, for people who don't know the specs, I think most headphones, the average 32 ohm over ear, whatever, is probably something like 110.
Even that, I think you're right for the average, but
30 dB louder. That's wow.
What's the LCDX? Let's find out.
Did they give their specs in volt? I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know. It's 103 dB per milliwatt, but that's also 20 ohm.
Right.
So
yeah, you would have to convert it to volt.
Yeah.
Volt takes into account everything. That's why
it's fairly sensitive for a planar.
Yeah, it's pretty sensitive.
Yeah.
The LCD2, I think, is definitely 70 ohms. I feel like it plays I think it plays slightly louder than a 650 or so, if I remember what I've, empirically. But the LCX is, quite a bit louder than the 2, but it's still not quite as loud as, maybe a typical closed back with low impedance. Still very easy to run, though. It runs off an Apple dongle, even though people are angry. Oh, VSG has arrived. Right at the end here.
the man himself. We were just singing your praises, VSG.
You're going to have to go back and watch the stream because I mentioned you a number of times.
Yeah. Good thing we didn't shit talk him or anything like that. So.
Why are you making... Okay, now he's more likely to watch.
Oh, yeah, no, we didn't. We really
did not.
So I'm just seeing here... someone says, but topping is dead quiet, even with high impedance IEMs past 115. But what we're talking about is higher than that in both cases.
Way higher.
So
it's totally nuts.
Yeah, you'll hear noise floor on that with things that measure exceptionally well and score well on Synad, and you still hear noise floor unless you're using that IE match or whatever, right?
Dude, 140.
Yeah.
That's...
So. The Ampere Zeus that's the other one. Yes,
one usable volume step out of the Apple dongle on an iPhone with the Andromeda.
It's just like
if you turn it up one more than one step on your phone, it's blowing your ears. I think I agree. That's a design problem.
Yeah. That's what I like about these 64 audio ones. Well, typically, I don't know if all of them have this, but they go for that linear impedance design thing where it's a lot more forgiving and flexible for what you run it from.
It's also a flat-ish curve on the... Is that what they're talking about?
I think so.
So that means the output impedance won't mess with the FR. as well. At least not as much.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not gonna. You know how like the Andromeda, if you run it off a higher open impedance, you lose the bass. It's not gonna have that issue,
Yeah.
right? Or I guess that's a feature. That's,
Having a
yeah,
flat impedance curve is good.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Let's see. I mean, there's a lot of stuff with 64 audio. I don't love all of their IEMs, but they're probably my favorite IEM. Like, just about all their IEMs to have something where I'm like, that's dope. You know?
12T is really good, but I think that I just can't hear high enough to hear like the detail it has way up, apparently up at like 18 or 19K that I keep hearing about. Like it sounds like it drops off to me like after the mid treble to some degree. Like the detail is excellent, like it's very like liquid smooth throughout. It's just not like that airy if you can't hear like really high. So I think that's been my impression of it.
I think it's
And
17K.
the bass is super detailed.
Yeah.
Like
Try the
also.
U60. See what you think.
Okay.
Just you know, if you get a chance, right? And I'm sure you'll be like, oh, I can't stand something in the treble, and resolve is, you know. But you know, I for me it's like it took me a little bit to like, you know how like the SA6, it like takes you a little bit to go, oh yeah, this is dope. I think the U60 was like that for me as well, because like I at first I just started hearing some of the colorations and I was like, okay, yeah, it's got a little bit of this, and now I'm like, I love that about it. It's little accents that it has. I love it, including the slight treble forwardness in the upper treble, but not as high as the U12T. So
as hardcore as we are about perfect FR, you're allowed to like things that are flavorful. I harp on Grados all day, every day. But like that's just me. I can't stop you from buying and enjoying one. Like,
yeah,
that's an important point. You have to separate those things.
I was saying recently that like the Grados to me are like the perfect thing to buy if you feel like making a headphone.
if you want to get into modding,
yeah,
that and the cost. My cost collection is too large.
Yeah,
those are a lot of fun too for even less.
Yeah, but I guess at the same time you can buy like those Timphany drivers for pretty cheap on AliExpress if you want to get into that.
Man.
Right, and then you have headphone company, and then you yeah.
My current favorite IEM, still the SA6 at the moment. It is just I don't know anyone who actually doesn't like it. Like I read Precog's review and I'm like, this is a little negative, but then at the end it's like, think about all my other reviews and compare this review to those, and it's like, yeah, they're good.
Precog hates everything, so if he
was like, this is more than acceptable, basically, it's what I got out of that, and I was like, oh, all right,
yeah,
yeah.
I was talking to you about this, but like
this is a good point. I want to touch on really
go
quickly. All neutral warmish headphones that do the SA6 thing is kind of boring. Yes. A lot of the time when I have a new headphone in and I'm like, it sounds like a headphone. Like in a couple of hours, I'm like, this is really good. It's just like if a headphone wows you at a store or something of like, there's so much detail or whatever, the chances are actually relatively high that once you get it home, it's like, this is bright. This is annoying. Like there's just too much going on. So it's that I've had that experience multiple times now. And it is interesting. An SA6 in a store is not very impressive.
That's actually a really good point. And that, I wonder if that's actually had
really good the longer you listen to it.
Yeah, I wonder if that has like an effect on like, well, it definitely does in the consumer space, right? But I wonder about the effects in the audiophile space of like tunings that deliberately go for like, something that's going to grab your attention on first listen or at a store.
The HD800 is like designed to be demoed at a show.
Yeah, and not ever used ever again.
That's what it felt like. When I finally got mine, I was like, oh no, this is what I got myself into.
But you know what? Chrono, I think he bought one. I think he sold it. No, he gave it to one of his family members. Maybe I should get it directly from him. But then I think he bought another one. So really? He is an HD800S lover, and
I only had the original, so it was even brighter.
Oh yeah.
It was a lot.
I see somebody.
I had them side by side. They're stupidly similar. Like saying one sounds completely different than the other. That's not true. No. Like the S is really similar. It's like a couple dB less in the 6K region. That's about it.
I still gotta try the 8XX at some point.
Oh
The
no, I can't wait to see that review. That's
I don't
like,
know where I'm gonna get one, but
yeah, I know. That's the problem. And I keep saying this. I can't wait for the 7506 review.
Oh
It's like my
yeah, need to
most
do that.
hated. You were doing that like closeback monitor thing, I think, for a little bit. But I
Uh,
think with the NTH 100 and then the
yeah,
M50X, and yeah,
yeah. I mean,
eventually.
I still think that like for that application, that K371 is the best. Like,
I I agree. The only problem is just the build quality
yeah,
is questionable. That's the only thing. Mine still works. I still have it. It's
yeah.
literally like behind me
So
somewhere.
I don't know when I'll do this, but the plan for like upcoming content and reviews, at least for me, for like a short amount of time, is going to be to try and do more of these sorts of comparisons that are centered around a specific theme, like for example, monitoring headphones, right? Or I mean, maybe we'll do it based on price bracket or something, but like something where you can make the assessment of an M50X versus a Rode NTH100 versus K371 MDR 7506. Like things that people would use for that purpose. So
Yeah.
I'm hopeful to do that. But I see here someone saying another really good one they like is the Soft Ears RSV
Is
for.
that the Moondrop like sister brand thing?
So I'm not sure. So
I
this
thought that's
one
what I heard.
is another example of something's really well tuned. One of the best tuned IEMs out there, at least for like stuff to sound normal and good. But at the same time, it has the thickest nozzles I've ever come across to the point where I can't use it.
Oh boy,
Like
that's another Blessing 2 problem.
this is way worse than the Blessing 2 for that.
Really?
Way
I
more
didn't.
significant. I can't even get it into my ears properly for any length of time without like feeling pain. Oh, that's very close.
Oh,
There we go.
jeez, that is
So this is
wow.
what I
Is that
need ear canal gauges for.
what is the width of that? Do you have a
No, I don't
super
have a
detailed ruler? Yeah.
no.
I only have a 10-inch ruler because it's for setting up guitars. It's got like 64ths of an inch and like half millimeters on it. It's really good for measuring like tips and like width of nozzles.
Yeah.
It just so happens to be.
See,
That's probably like 6 millimeter or something. They're
this is
really
the kind of measuring headphones that
wide.
we're still missing.
Yeah, we need every dimension.
Yeah.
Somebody said. Oh, DSG was talking about the Moondrop Alice, which
Oh yeah.
supposedly supports possibly the parametric EQ and a staccato driver. That sounds really promising too.
Yeah.
I haven't heard the Kato, but I imagine it's,
It
just a better aria in every way, something like that, which sounds good.
Yeah, there's a argument for the aria even being, well, the Kato I liked it more than the aria, but for many reasons. But there's still something in the treble where I'm just like something.
Mm.
It's hard to describe.
Digital caliper, yes, that's a good
Yeah.
recommendation.
So we've been going for about 2 hours, but I have a suggestion that could be kind of fun
Okay.
to close out the stream here. You want to go through Reddit and just like comment on the various different topics on Reddit?
Oh no.
This could
You
be
mean
this
like
could be
what I
dangerous as
do
well.
half of my weekend? No,
Wait, let's not
no.
go through the whole thing, but let's go through some of it.
Actually, one thing I do is I always sort by new.
Oh
So
God.
so I catch things like that are very entertaining, rather than the things everyone has already seen.
Well, I wonder if this is something that the stream would even want.
I don't see. All right, I'll go to hot. Now, this people are gonna be like, well, "What are you guys doing? You're not even paying attention to the chat." Actually, there
Uh,
was something in the chat that I wanted to
oh yeah,
respond
go
to
ahead. Go ahead.
while you look at that. Let's see. Oh, B Ash. Oh, my favorite. Oh, yeah, he's the one who asked that. Okay. What's the best mobile source that I still use? iPhone dongle. I have the Apple um, USB-C dongle. That's the one I have, and it is really still very good. But actually, what I'm doing is I have a BTR5 that ports LDAC, which my phone does, but at work I use it as a USB amp, which it also does, which is nice. Although I would probably get the what's the one with the parametric EQ? The Qdelix if I had to do it again, though.
Best
Yeah,
best thing.
because
Although some of
EQ.
this I think is probably a bit redundant now that you can do all this with apps and stuff anyways. right? Like with
Yeah, I just want to
but
see more true wirelesses that have advanced codec support and parametric EQ in the app. That would be very fun.
yeah. So
People still use Reddit.
I think
It's
we have a
more
couple of
controversial.
that's yeah. So there's a couple ways to do this. One of them is to just go through
That
the
is
hot
one way to
ones.
do it.
The other one's to go through controversial. So I don't know what would you.
Controversial sounds fun. What is this focal? Sorry, I've said that too many times because Ubuntu 20.04 is called Focal Fossa. So
Oh,
I've been saying focal so many times instead of focal that I forgot. My bad. Focal
yeah.
Bathis. That looks
It
interesting. I
looks like
saw that earlier.
this was sort of this was a leak
I wonder
from.
if you can share, like, I don't know, maybe it's not easy to share your screen into the stream.
No, it is not because it's window capture.
Oh,
If I do screen
oh
capture,
right.
weird stuff happens. Yeah. But it looks like a. So this is it's a leak about their like a looks like a wireless headphone. But the thing I wanted to mention on this is when we were at Munich High End, there there were a lot of companies that were showing off what looked like wireless headphones. So they were more like, I guess, audiophile, like high end kind of companies out there. Like T plus A was another one that had they had a wireless headphone there. And so I think this is just like that trend where they're seeing like, oh yeah, nobody has done the like audiophile version of a wireless ANC headphone yet
I
properly.
think somebody was asking about does
Let's
that
try and do that.
exist earlier
Yeah,
in the
so I
stream.
think
I was like, not really, but I guess that's
they're
kind
going
of
after
coming
it, right?
out.
That's kind of
I
how I
mean,
see
this is
that.
kind of what Tyler predicted. He's like,
Yeah,
you're only going to see more and more Bluetooth. You're going to see more wireless. You're going to see more DSP. You're going to see
yeah,
like virtual surround. I mean, it's already happening. I mean, Apple did that with the AirPods Max, and everyone freaked out about that. So clearly, a market for
yeah.
higher end closed backs, even.
And the Mark Levinson was $1,000
Yeah,
ANC that came out recently that's got some trouble
that's not
issues.
the greatest.
uh,
Sorry, Sean.
yeah, yeah. It's
Actually, I haven't heard it, but
no, I've
I am
heard two of them.
living this hobby through you now. So
I could tell you right now, you would not like it. It's
okay.
it's
Trouble problems like the number one thing I complain about
yeah,
aside from upper mids.
yeah,
I like this though. There's someone who had took a picture of the FIO true wireless adapters. I must have mentioned it to you like 20 times, and I'm gonna try
oh yeah.
putting FIO true wireless adapters on the SA6, and I wonder how that will work out. I should get Brandon, is that his name's opinion on whether that would even work,
Yeah.
because I haven't actually looked at them in too much detail. But
Oh
I want them to release an LDAC version. I think they're supposed to be releasing another higher end beyond the one they have now. So maybe I'll wait for that. But pretty interesting.
yeah. Golden says something here about. It just made me think of something. He says he's excited to see more stuff in the future that adapts to your individual HRTF. That is something that Final Audio is doing with one of their new in-ear products. I can't remember the name of it. Something 4000, something 8000, ZE 8000. I don't know, but what it's a new in-ear that kind of a new true wireless. Sorry, that apparently if you like go to their headquarters or something, they'll map your HRTF and then they'll create a custom EQ profile for that, something along those lines, and that seems really really dope. So
Yeah,
at least interesting.
VSG. No, not VSG. Golden Sound was saying, yeah, the HRTF adaption.
Yeah,
I had previously like talked. I said to Sean like, so why did you get rid of the automatic calibration in the JBL stuff, and like where did that go? That was called like True Note or something like that. The first time
mm.
I saw that I think was the N90Q, that like
Yeah,
fifteen
yeah,
hundred
yeah, yeah.
dollar wireless. I actually, believe it or not, one of my friends somehow ended up having one. He was not even like an audiophile like this level, but I think someone gifted him the N90Q, and I'm like, wait, really, that headphone? So I tried it, and yeah, it was like dead on, like really. It
Mm.
was like it sounded like Harman. After I calibrated it to my head, it sounded like Harman with just a flat bass and like no treble features, just straight out, but not detailed. So it had amazing tuning with no bass shelf and like just kind of a little grainy.
I wonder how
But
they
that was
do
interesting.
that with the sort
But
of
they play a
acoustic
sweep
loads.
right in
Oh,
the. They play a sweep. That's what you hear. You hear a sweep
yeah.
in your ear, and then it does something with that. I don't know why that's not being expanded. I want to see that because. Oh, sorry, VSG. We're stealing your thunder, I guess. Yeah, there's a so there's that method, and then there's the other one where you take a picture of your ear, and then some AI tries to adjust based on that as well. Maybe if you combine those things.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the kind of DSP that Tile was even more alluding to. May come around. We'll see.
I mean, at the very least, there's got to. I mean, we're people not talking about like the olive method and stuff like that, but at the very least, there's got to be something to HRTF matching. I think the risk is to assume that that's. We don't know if that's like the thing that's necessarily going to make things that previously sounded grainy not sound grainy. Like I don't know if we can make that jump yet.
Solve that.
Yeah, but
it might solve individual peaks though. That's
yeah,
because
like
you don't want the user to have to do that.
yeah,
You want to be able to automatically do that. And if that's one way to do it, then
it should certainly sound better.
More.
Yeah.
I wonder
should we
if
just?
that...
I'll pick a couple of topics from Reddit
Okay.
that we can talk about, and then we can close it out. So
I was just going to say briefly. I wonder if Harman ever released any paper related to the true note calibration stuff. I guess not, because I certainly haven't heard about that.
Yeah, I haven't heard.
Maybe
about
that's
that
some internal, not releasable research.
I do have to give them credit though for their EQ app, parametric, full, customizable.
I don't like the N40 NC. What? Oh, N400. Is that what it's called? That AKG in ear?
Oh no, I'm talking about the over ear one. Yeah.
Oh well, I think the app is probably similar because it lets you like drag a line around and go up and down and change the width and whatever. Yeah, I have to give them credit on that, even though I don't like that one. But I think that's probably a similar app.
Somehow that's not on the Mark Levinson. So
what?
They're not. They need to put that in there, and if they do, that Mark Levinson is going to be because you can just drop that 10K, you know,
quote unquote luxury product. You shouldn't have to work for it. I don't know.
I guess.
I don't know.
It's going after a different crowd. The no EQ gang starts at a certain price point.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Dude, I still see people on. Yeah, I'll harp on. I still see lots of people on Headphone and be like, "What's wrong with you guys? EQ destroys the sound as soon as you turn it on." Like, how do you guys not know that? Who would actually do that? I'm like, oh my.
I think I know why they're having that
happening.
Assessment though, and it's probably because they're not compensating for the volume, for the pre-gain.
Yeah, it must have at least something to do with that.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
We were answering questions from the chat. Hey, I just answered yours. Ask if we are. Well, we're about to finish up here, though.
Yeah. So we did the vocal leak thing. The Moondrop has a new Aria Snow edition that everybody's talking about.
I don't get it. Isn't it like mostly just a...
It's a slight tuning change, right? Like, I think.
It doesn't look better. All the graphs I've seen, the bass like drops off more, and like it's... I don't know what the point of it is. Other than to avoid paint, maybe? That would be the real reason to get it if they have actually done it differently. I don't know if they have.
That's one where it's amazing to me how much attention things that seem to be inconsequential get. But those things, turns out, they do matter. Like the cosmetic changes. People wanted a white one, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know why they retuned it slightly.
Yeah. Next one here, we did talk a little bit about the Moondrop Alice flagship TWS. That's one that you're hyped for,
right.
Or what was the verdict there?
Yeah, because apparently parametric EQ with a nice sock, not the kind you wear on your foot, but system on a chip for SoC from Qualcomm, which supports some nice codecs probably, as well as parametric EQ, while also using the Kato driver. That combination sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Next one here is, do you prefer to purchase or stream music? I think I know the answer for you.
I actually do both. Believe it or not, I actually have a small CD collection that I keep adding to occasionally because I'm a boomer. And
what do you use for a CD player?
I think mainly I just rip them to FLAC, actually, more so than actually use the CD. I definitely need one of the CD players where you can like watch the CD spin. That would be going full CD.
Yeah.
But mostly Spotify. I've always used Spotify, and I'm still using it. And yes, I know before the chat explodes about like they don't pay anybody. I have just been using it forever. But
that is not as it's not what people think.
Oh, that's right. You said that this was misleading.
It is misleading. Yeah. There's a video about that, but I won't. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've covered it before.
Yeah. Have you seen? Okay, next one on here is Ishka's Abyss review, AB 1266. Did you get a chance to read it?
Did you just out him?
It's his name on the site.
Oh, is it really? Oh yeah, never mind. I keep forgetting that.
I think
he's been posting under this alias on Reddit forever, but I guess if he's linking directly to the site, yeah, Denfi. Oh yeah, I guess that's kind of a piece of news. Denfi.com is expanding. He's kind of like a friend of the channel, if you could say, this channel and my old channel, I guess. And he has his own site, and he's added a lot of reviewers recently, including this one, very well-known precog-like reviewer from the old days, like 10 years ago. I remember reading his reviews. Very detailed.
Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't like the 1266. You know, my experience with the 1266 has been weird. You were there when I was listening to it, and when I listened to it in the room with the woo, the giant woo, it sounded really detailed, but not totally right. But when I heard it at the actual Abyss booth, it didn't sound the same. It sounded like a lot less detailed. I have no idea what's going on with that thing.
Yeah. The biggest, I think, controversial take in that review, I think, is that its detail's not really any better than the Sundara.
The Sundara?
Which to me, that's the one where I kind of, my eyebrows kind of go to the back of my head a little bit.
I kind of felt like when I heard the one at the Abyss, well, maybe not that bad. I don't think it was that bad, but it wasn't like the woo room, so I don't know what's going on. Either he got a bad one or like...
No, I think he reviewed the same one that I reviewed, because I think I sent it to him.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
think so. I have listener, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But also shout out to all the writers from Denfi. Listener is another one. Flux is on there.
I've heard. Right. Flux is extraordinarily famous. Well, he's been on here before.
Yeah.
Guy.
Yeah. So love Denfi's stuff. Okay, let's see the. If there's anything else here.
Apparently the ADI2 deck FS is on sale. Wait,
I still need to play around with that one. We have one in the
I always thought it was closer to 2. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's like my end game thing because obviously has EQ.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's basically it for things that are potentially controversial. There's not really that much crazy
news.
Yeah, there's not really much drama. There is one thing though that we haven't talked about yet. That's been sort of like over the past little bit on Reddit, which is the news of Crin's latest collab. Okay, I don't know if I'm not gonna say this right, but the Salnotes Dyoko. Who comes up with these names? What is? Anyways, so we're supposedly going to get one sent in, but when I looked at that, I thought to myself, you know how there's the coupler resonance on those the knockoff cross, well, not the older, like the non-REO 412 ones, yeah. So the peak and the trebles around that spot, but it also looks more extreme than what the coupler resonance is. So I would have thought that would have been the change, but I guess they couldn't do that based on what Crin, usually what his input is. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to expect out of that.
Yeah.
Probably sibilance. No.
That's exactly what I expected. But, it's one of those where, like, so it looks very similar to the timeless there, right? But if they if they change the bass so that the bass is, like, tighter and more impactful somehow, and all the rest stays the same, that's already a win.
Oh,
That's
yeah, I
kind
did
of
see that graph. That's right. Yeah,
yeah,
probably siblings,
yeah.
but
That's
everything
fair.
else will probably be amazing.
Yeah,
So it sounds like another blessing to Dusk and Planar for.
yeah. The problem with I realize now the problem with searching by or looking at controversial is that there's a lot of takes here that are just like wrong.
Yeah,
It's not really worth.
I don't sort the post by
That's not.
controversial.
Yeah. Um. Someone's asking for audio advice on audio improvements on their Focal Utopia. At that point, I say go speakers. I don't know what else. Right.
Yeah, I don't know where you go.
Um.
Focal speakers, you already know. I don't know. You know.
Just try them.
They're apparently good.
We heard a lot of really cool speaker setups though. At high end. The ones that I do want to hear though that I still haven't heard yet are the Gentle X. The ones I still need to get those in. So yeah.
Crin's gonna name his IM after a burger. I want that to happen. A
Yeah.
Fusion McKing. Okay, could do that.
Here's one that says KU100 is okay. I'm not gonna get into that. There's a
Oh
lot,
no, that's a long discussion.
yeah, it's a lot of stuff where I'm just like I don't want to touch that one.
The only other one I saw was someone posted there. I don't know if maybe it was a 6XX, I think, with Glenn Fittich, and I was like, yeah, there we go.
Now
That's
we're
a good
talking.
scotch.
Man, I'm so into the Japanese whiskeys these days.
Really? Okay.
Like Nika from the Barrel and Suntory. There's one from Suntory that I really like. I can't remember the name of it right now, but yeah, I'm ordinarily a Glenlivet, Glenfiddich kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been going to a lot of breweries, but that's about it. No distilleries. There actually are a couple distilleries around here that I want to try. I've never been to one of those. That should be entertaining.
Yeah, we should do a distillery tour next time I'm in New York.
Find some. I don't know which ones are in what city. We'll have to look.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's plenty. Oh, Denfi has arrived.
What up, Denfi?
We were just someone must include him in. Yeah, we were shouting out. We were just going through Reddit. Which
shout out to Lifelong Caboose as well.
He's he's got a site actually. Forget exactly what.
He's the contraption.
Too.
Something.
That would it. Or maybe he doesn't. Or maybe he doesn't want it to be widely distributed. I don't know.
So I follow him on Twitter.
Yeah. You can post it here if you want. Got a site too.
I'm just gonna out him. No, I won't do that.
No.
But anyways, shout out to all the writers who are in here and reviewers.
Yeah, there are a lot of writers.
Listeners in here as well.
Wow! I hadn't realized that was. Okay, we were just wow.
Yep.
All right.
That we should probably cut it there. VSG says talk to Crin about how this came about. It's an interesting thing in itself and different from the usual collabs. That's good to know.
The planar, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very curious about. Well, more than anything, I'm curious like what the inspiration for that name is. Like that sounds like you just like pointed at like 3 different words randomly in the dictionary and just like put them together in any random order. Yeah.
I'd be more excited for lighting advice from Denfi. Yeah, talk to Den about lighting. I think it's like a passion.
Yeah. For me, it's just darkness. I want all the lights off all the time.
Yeah. This stream looks strange. I was commenting that even before we started. I was like, I'm like blowing out people's the yin yang.
Yeah.
No.
Anyways, we should probably cut it because we've been going for 2.5 hours, and it's funny because as we get to the end of the stream and wind down, the bot spam has stopped. So there's
That's
that
helpful.
at least.
That was fun. You should go through Reddit with other guests.
Yeah, but it has to be on days when there's like
we got some as long as there's some like a news floating around.
Exactly. But okay, guys, big thanks to everybody for tuning in and all of your awesome questions, and also thanks to all the folks who are here regularly. I recognize many of you guys' names, so thanks for showing up and hanging out. I don't know if we'll do another one of these next week, but probably. I'll probably keep doing it.
Yeah, hopefully you can get gotta get Sam on here. That would be
I'll talk to him this week and see if we can set something up. But otherwise, also big shout out to Metal571 for taking you know, his afternoon to chat with all of us. So thanks again to Metal. Always great to talk to you. And yeah, everyone is still. If you're not going to come back officially, you know, you're always welcome to be.
Yeah, I'm still hanging out for now.
Yeah. Alrighty, guys. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Take care.
I think we're out.